If Kaduna State is only known for one thing, then it has to be for the fact that it is an industrial hub, clearly housing so many industries that are involved in either manufacturing, processing, or the production of a wide array of items cutting across different sectors. This didn't happen by accident, but by the mere fact that Kaduna State is blessed with unlimited quantities of raw materials, which is key to the sustainability of these industries. Its linkages to various northern markets and the high literacy level of its teeming population that make up the workforce of these industries makes it an even better destination of choice for the setup of these industries. But over the last few decades, some of these industries have either declined or become moribund in their operations and has contributed immensely to the slow pace of the state's economic growth and development. But there is light at the end of the tunnel after all, because the administration of Governor Nasser El-Rufai has continued to break new grounds where successive governments have failed, and returning Kaduna State to its days of industrial bloom is one of them. Just last year, the Kaduna State government launched an industrial master plan which strongly reiterated the state government's resolve to prioritize public-private partnerships to realize the needed advancement in focus industrial sectors like agriculture, mining and quarrying, textile, automobile, and lots more. In the agricultural sector, for instance, Kaduna State is known to be amongst the largest producers of ginger in Africa, and its ginger is known to be the finest in the world. Also, Kaduna State is among leading producers of tomato, maize, sorghum, and sugarcane in Nigeria. But sadly, there aren't enough processing industries for these products, hereby completely limiting the true profitability of these agricultural products. Kaduna State is also known for its livestock and livestock products production in high quantity, but again, the limited number of industries to completely harness these potentials remains a great setback. In mining and quarrying, the entire 23 local government areas of Kaduna State with huge quantities of metal and solid minerals like gemstone, manganese, tantalite, lithium, iron, talc, tourmaline, nickel, tin, gold, the list goes on and on. But the lack of proper and organized mining operations, as well as the unavailability of mining companies in the state, creates a huge gap between what is seen and the true potentials of profitability in the sector, hence depicting the investment opportunities waiting to be taken. Likewise, Kaduna State in the 70s and 80s used to be home to numerous textile and garment industries. Today, these industries have become moribund, but offers plenty of investment opportunities. The establishment of the Kaduna Investment and Promotion Agency, (KADIPA), which is a one-stop shop for investors in Kaduna State by Governor Nasser El-Rufai, clearly shows that government understands the impact of private sector investment to the state, and that is why it is committed to go into developmental partnerships for a win-win situation. Findings globally have revealed that in the next few decades, close to 60 or 70% of all population will be located at the city centers. Kaduna State is already feeling the impact of this analogy, as the state capital, Kaduna, for instance, was originally designed to accommodate between 6 and 700,000 people. Today, the population of Kaduna town stands at over 3 million people, and the influx is continual. The resultant effect of this on existing infrastructure and strain on investments is obvious.
You can't have an investor coming into the city without having the city being properly named, being your reference, have it on the Google that you can log onto the number, the house you want to go, or the business location you want to go, navigate through your Google Maps and locate yourself. And also, an investor would like to come into Kaduna to see a serene city, a planned city, a quiet city, a functional city, and a city wherever you can't see activity haphazardly going on. No any investor would want to come into the city and end up having hold-ups, end up having his time being wasted on the junctions or on the traffic or whatever.
It is of little wonder then that the Kaduna State government, in its foresight, embarked on a rigorous urban renewal project aimed at not only matching public infrastructure with the ever-increasing population of the state, but also to upgrade the state to world-class standards where investments can thrive seamlessly. Today, that goal has been achieved. New roads, markets, bridges, parks are being built or upgraded, transforming Kaduna into a true investor's heaven.
It's really something that is huge and comprehensive, and it's beyond just road networks. It's beyond just bridges. The urban renewal covers issues of, for example, urban public transportation. Beyond that, we have issues of parks. I mean, we have a very beautiful park coming up right in front of Government House, the Centenary Park. But we also plan to have parks spread across the city so that people don't have to come to one location if they want to recreate with their families and the rest.
What we're doing for all commercial hubs in Kaduna is for those that currently exist, we're upgrading them and remodeling them and fitting them with modern facilities that we hope at the end of the day will encourage more visitors to these facilities. And once that happens, it means that the traders will be able to have more money because more people are coming to spend their money in these markets.
No doubt, the current outlook of Kaduna State offers new opportunities for investment, and the state government's commitment towards having a private sector-driven economy in the state remains unchanged.
Well, I mean, for everybody that's been to Kadinvest last year, just a year ago, I mean, if you've come in today to attend this Kadinvest, you can see that the city is clearly changing. We're investing a huge amount of public resources. We're putting our money where our mouth is and making changes. I mean, look at Murtala Square today. It's undergoing the biggest change that it has seen in decades. And we're continuing to do this. We are putting public sector money for the public good. What we're doing is to invite the private sector to say, come in and put your own resources. We're not saying put it for the public good. There will be a profit or motive to it, but we want the city to develop. We want our young people to have jobs. And so we will provide all our support, all the incentives that are required for responsible and capable business men and women to come in and put in their money in Kaduna State. As I mentioned, there's a huge investment portfolio that's open: hotels, parks, markets, shopping malls, all of that, and even things that we don't think about as government. If you see the opportunity to come and talk to us, Kadipa is there. We're all available and accessible to be able to support businesses to thrive in Kaduna State.
If Kaduna State is only known for one thing, then it has to be for the fact that it is an industrial hub, clearly housing so many industries that are involved in either manufacturing, processing, or the production of a wide array of items cutting across different sectors. This didn't happen by accident, but by the mere fact that Kaduna State is blessed with unlimited quantities of raw materials, which is key to the sustainability of these industries. Its linkages to various northern markets and the high literacy level of its teeming population that make up the workforce of these industries makes it an even better destination of choice for the setup of these industries. But over the last few decades, some of these industries have either declined or become moribund in their operations, and has contributed immensely to the slow pace of the state's economic growth and development. But there is light at the end of the tunnel after all, because the administration of Governor Nasser El-Rufai has continued to break new grounds where successive governments have failed, and returning Kaduna State to its days of industrial bloom is one of them. Just last year, the Kaduna State government launched an industrial master plan which strongly reiterated the state government's resolve to prioritize public-private partnerships to realize the needed advancement in focus industrial sectors like agriculture, mining and quarrying, textile, automobile, and lots more. In the agricultural sector, for instance, Kaduna State is known to be amongst the largest producers of ginger in Africa, and its ginger is known to be the finest in the world. Also, Kaduna State is among leading producers of tomato, maize, sorghum, and sugarcane in Nigeria. But sadly, there aren't enough processing industries for these products, hereby completely limiting the true profitability of these agricultural products. Kaduna State is also known for its livestock and livestock products production in high quantity, but again, the limited number of industries to completely harness these potentials remains a great setback. In mining and quarrying, the entire 23 local government areas of Kaduna State with huge quantities of metal and solid minerals like gemstone, manganese, tantalite, lithium, iron, talc, tourmaline, nickel, tin, gold, the list goes on and on. But the lack of proper and organized mining operations, as well as the unavailability of mining companies in the state, creates a huge gap between what is seen and the true potentials of profitability in the sector, hence depicting the investment opportunities waiting to be taken. Likewise, Kaduna State in the 70s and 80s used to be home to numerous textile and garment industries. Today, these industries have become moribund, but offers plenty of investment opportunities. The establishment of the Kaduna Investment and Promotion Agency, (KADIPA), which is a one-stop shop for investors in Kaduna State by Governor Nasser El-Rufai, clearly shows that government understands the impact of private sector investment to the state, and that is why it is committed to go into developmental partnerships for a win-win situation.
talking about the person of Hajia Umma.
Once again, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to day 2 of Kadinvest 5.0. I trust that we all had a very good day yesterday and enjoyed the discussions. Today's plenaries will be on technology and innovation in business and rethinking agriculture. I therefore invite you all to participate and enjoy the discussions. Thank you very much.
Okay. And that was a very short welcoming remark from the lady who put it all together. Thank you so much, Hajia Umma Yusuf Abuki. At this point, we will be going over to His Excellency to hear from him. I'm talking about the governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasser Ahmad El Rufai, for a presentation of the recap of yesterday's events.
Lucy II, who is our keynote speaker today, members of the State Executive Council, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to quickly recap what we went through yesterday, the first day of the summit. Next slide. The summit this year, our 5th summit, has a theme of infrastructure, industrialization, and innovation. And it kicked off by 10 a.m. and anchored by Jacqueline Adebija, who noted that the event was born out of an audacious dream to transform Kaduna State into a center of business excellence. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we are holding this summit virtually for the first time, and it's the first of its kind, with people joining all over the world. Over 1,300 people have shown indication to join. Yesterday, we had a full session, full day starting from 10 o'clock and closed a little after 2 p.m. We had opening remarks by the Deputy Governor and the Chairman of Kaduna Investment Promotion Agency, Dr. Hadiza Balarabe, and then an overview of Kadinvest 1.0 to 4.0 and the unveiling of Kadinvest by my humble self. Then we had an address by our guest speaker, His Excellency, our leader, President Muhammadu Buhari, and a keynote speech from respected economist and Managing Director of Financial Derivatives Company Limited, Mr. Bispak Rewani, member of Presidential Advisory Council. We had a very kind goodwill message from the Governor of Lagos State, my brother Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and 2 plenaries, one on domesticating industry 4.0 and infrastructure development, where we discussed how to accelerate infrastructure development in a post-COVID era. I will now give a quick summary of each of the presentations. The opening remarks by the Deputy Governor and Chairman of Kaduna Investment Promotion Agency focused on presenting the state and the opportunities in its rich soil and arable land, mineral resources, and spectacular scenery. So she felt that the event provides an opportunity for the state to promote its rich culture rebuild its economy, and fundamentally change the economic life of the citizenry. She added that government will serve as an enabler through which policies that uphold investments and trust are strengthened. I then unveiled Kaduna Investment Summit 5.0 by going back through memory lane to look at the previous 4 investment summits we've had and the successes that we have achieved since then. But the cardinal objective of this summit is to attract investments because the government cannot employ everyone, and the only way we can create jobs for our teeming population is to get the private sector to invest, create jobs for our people. The government has tried to develop policies, action, and reforms since 2015 to make Kaduna State the choice of investment destination decisions. In the last 5 years, we have attracted both domestic and foreign investments worth over $800 million. And this year alone, we've had investment announcements in excess of $2 billion. This makes Kaduna number 1 by way of attracting investments in the entire country. These investments were facilitated by the creation of one-stop shop, the Kaduna Investment Promotion Agency, chaired by Her Excellency the Deputy Governor, with our brother, respected His Highness Muhammad Sanusi II as Vice Chairman, and some commissioners as members to operationalize and ensure that Kaduna is indeed the investment destination of choice for domestic and foreign investors. Kadipa became the main interface for the private sector to attract investments to Kaduna, and they have been quite successful. In 2019, after our re-election to a second term of office, we restructured the government by signing 3 executive orders, creating 3 new ministries, while we abolished 3 old historical ministries, and we amended the mandates of 3 more others, and established 5 policy implementation councils for better coordination and to reduce the incidence of silo mentality in government. The state has also commenced an accelerated, coordinated, and integrated sustainable urban renewal projects in our 3 main cities of Kaduna, Zaria, and Kafanchan, which we hope will invite the president to commission in 2021 by the grace of God. 2 economic zones were established, namely the Green Economic Zone and Green Allied Economic Zone, all of which will be powered by renewable energy, solar power in particular. Kadinvest 1.0 to 4.0 have been very successful in that regard, but 5.0 came in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic in April. So we had to postpone the summit. We had to revise our budget, reduce our budget by 14%. We had to streamline costs and reduce overheads, and offered incentives, tax incentives for businesses to survive. But our priorities remain the same: to strengthen agriculture, which is a natural and a comparative advantage, to improve education, power supply, housing and urban development, social development, roads, and water resources. We also announced that government has developed a public-private partnership policy and manual, and also adopted a digital strategy towards increasing internally generated revenue of the state and prepare the operation of the state in a post-pandemic world. While unveiling Kadinvest, I stated that the event focuses on innovative ways of triggering growth and development by finding lasting solutions to both economic and environmental challenges. Our future plans include an increased share of agriculture, electrical and electronics, automotive assembly, textiles, ICT, electricity, mining and quarrying, in inter and intra-state transport as contributions to GDP, with the objective of job creation and wealth creation. President Muhammad Buhari was our guest speaker yesterday, and he declared the summit open. But before then, he congratulated the people of Kaduna State on Kadinvest 5.0, which he said has become a regular fixture on the investment calendar. He also commended the state for establishing its credentials as one of the few new investment destinations of choice in Nigeria, saying that our effort is paying off as evident in the positive responses of the business community. He described as commendable investments that the state has been able to attract, including Olam Hatcheries, which has helped in revitalizing poultry farms across the state and indeed in northern Nigeria, as well as the ongoing development of iron mining and steel processing through investments by African Natural Resources and Mines Limited. He observed as remarkable the increase in the state's internally generated revenue from 13 billion, next slide, from 13 billion in 2015 to 44 billion in 2019 without increasing tax rates. He called on the government to keep up the laudable efforts and surpass the impressive results already attained. President Buhari prayed for productive deliberation as he called on the indigents of the state to cooperate with the state government and security agency, stressing that there must be peaceful coexistence for sustainable development to be achieved. He concluded by calling on the state government to afford full cooperation and support to cross-border federal projects such as the Abuja-Kaduna-Kano gas pipeline and the Abuja-Kaduna-Zaria-Kano highway. The keynote speech was delivered by Bismarck Rewane, renowned economist, MD of Financial Derivatives Limited, and a member of Presidential Economic Advisory Council. Mr. Rewane noted that the event is particularly auspicious because of the timing, relevance, and functionality being a period when the country, and indeed the entire world, are grappling to contend with the fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic, while at the same time addressing long-standing infrastructural issues. He commended the historical, cultural, and economic relevance of Kaduna as the nucleus of economic growth and center of gravity of Nigerian politics, and noted the relevance of the state in the nation's education, agriculture, aviation, and defense sectors, among others, which gives it a competitive advantage. He said that the challenges of unemployment, 39.8%, and poverty rate of 43.8%, among others, provide an opportunity to set a goal for restoration of the pride of Kaduna, the nucleus of the northern region, and use our central position to galvanize resources and talent to achieve that goal. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, the governor of Lagos State, gave a goodwill message. He commended our ministerial restructuring, particularly the establishment of the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Technology, our growth plan, and the 5 policy councils, said that these are initiatives other states should emulate to promote innovation and attract investors. He said the new normal calls for innovation in technology to ensure fiber connectivity to every home, and that is working effectively. He ended by calling for a healthy collaboration between our 2 states in the areas of rice production, tomato, which he acknowledged as successes in Kaduna State. There are 2 plenaries. The first plenary was in Domesticating Industry 4.0. It was moderated by our Honorable Commissioner of the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Technology, Idris Samaila Iyam. The panelists were Dr. S.O. Phillips, who was represented by Gloria Ukanga, Dr. EOA Damisa, past President and Fellow of Nigerian Society of Mining Engineers, Dr. Kashim Bukar Shatima, Chief Executive Officer of Barbados Motors, and Ahmed Rifai Zakri, Special Advisor to the President on Infrastructure, and finally, Mr. H.B. Ibrahim, who was partly represented by Mrs. Tanko. The session looked at industrialization and the emergence of technology with the merger of humans and machines, artificial intelligence, robotics, and the Internet of Things, what needs to be done to catch up with the rest of the world, and what we should do as part of our preparedness. Dr. Phillips, represented by Gloria Ukanga, provided some insight on transformation of agrarian society to technological and agricultural hub. This, he said, would boost economic growth. He stated that Kaduna State government is on track with policies and platforms like Kadinvest to leverage to attract direct foreign investment, but certain challenges remain, like security, which deters investors, which should be addressed, accessibility to machineries, especially capital-intensive ones, access to loans and credit, indigenous initiatives' willingness to support investment, accessibility to markets, especially in other states, and government support towards media and collaboration. Dr. Damisa, who is a mining engineer, was asked the question, what more can government do to attract investments in the mining sector? He noted that Kaduna is well endowed with minerals like gold, iron ore, zinc, nickel, and so on. He commended the state for creating the Kaduna Mining Development Company to champion revolution in the mining sector and urged us to pay greater attention to solid mineral development as oil is on its way out. He said we should focus on minerals that will bring rapid industrialization to the state, like graphite, cobalt, and lithium that are all available in the Birnungwari area. He encouraged investors to look into the gold deposits in Birnungwari, which he said are one of the largest in the country. He also ended by recommending that we find ways to formalize the artisanal mining culture. Bukar Shatima was asked the question what policies government should put in place to enable the growth of the automotive industry. He made 4 suggestions. First, the enabling environment for investments needs to be improved. Proper training of and skills to develop human capital, because he complained that many people are unskilled, and by the time you train someone, he leaves for another job. He urged us to create policies that will encourage investment duty-free. I don't understand what that means. And address issues of security and access to credit. Ahmad Rufai Zakari focused on renewable energy and the linkage of that to the 4th industrial revolution. He said that renewable energy is one of the main thrusts of future thoughts on economic growth, and 60% of installations globally are coming from renewable energy. However, Nigeria has not upscaled on the renewable energy front so far, either solar or wind. But he observed that with the pace Kaduna is going, it will probably be the first in the country to have sufficient solar power across the state. He recommended the need to build low-cost power solutions for all our rural communities that are off-grid. He announced a 140 billion naira fund to provide solar connections to 5 million homes. The feasibility study is active, and this has great opportunities for innovations brought to the fore by Kaduna State. The second plenary session is on infrastructure development and focus on accelerating infrastructure in the post-COVID era. It was moderated by our Honorable Commissioner of the Ministry of Public Works and Infrastructure, Mrs. Balaraba Aliyu Inua. The panelists were Mr. Uche Oji, the MD of Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, Samaila Zubairu, the President and CEO of African Finance Corporation, a son of Kaduna State, who was absent but represented by one of his senior managers, Mrs. Halima Abba. Uyi Akpata, Regional Senior Partner of PwC, was also a panelist, and then Ahmad Saliju Ahmed, the Managing Director of Rural Electrification Agency. Jackson Ukwevo, the CEO of Ranchers Global Resources, a civil engineering company, was also a panelist. And Biodun Otunola, the CEO of Planet Projects, a transportation solutions company. Mr. Uche Oji focused on how states can compete for international development financing. He noted the need for partnership with the private sector to accelerate growth and observed that the recovery of Nigeria will not come from agriculture alone, but also the integration of infrastructure and social development. He advised that Kaduna State needs to ready itself for competition alongside others in terms of accessing finance, and noted that skilled manpower is a basic attraction for investors, and states need to prioritize skills acquisition and education to enable them to be competitive. The Africa Finance Corporation CEO, Samaila Zubairu, represented by Halima Abba, looked at opportunities for government to tap into giving given the vulnerability of infrastructure development to the dynamics of the budget. She stated that there are a lot of capital all over and in the world and available for Africa for sustainable infrastructural development. She felt that the government can encourage public-private partnership through tax incentives to the private sector and also provide land for investors at the minimal cost. And finally concluded that government should control the narratives of investment in the country and the state. We, Akpata of PricewaterhouseCoopers, address the need to what we need to do to achieve the successes other countries have had with private sector in infrastructure development. He suggested that Kaduna State needs to re-strategize and redirect its supply chain and encourage states generally to look inwards and not just outwards in terms of public-private partnerships so as to compete favorably with other countries. He encouraged our state to create a portfolio that promotes the state as attractive and profitable for the private sector. Ahmed Salihijo Ahmed, who is the MD of Rural Electrification Agency, focused on how urbanization and climate change are relevant for Nigeria and how we can mitigate these issues. He observed that the availability of electricity is crucial to development, and Kaduna State needs to think of innovative ways of generating power for rural electrification. He suggested that government should work with other stakeholders in generating and delivering rural electrification, and concluded that climate change and urbanization are some of the key factors affecting global change, and we should be ready for those challenges. Jackson Okwevo is the CEO of Ronches, one of the major civil engineering companies active in Kaduna State. He focused on the disruption in the value of supply chain due to COVID-19 and how that disruption can be mitigated and what is the impact of that on quality. He made two main points: that Kaduna State is a state that has a future for many, especially young people. And he observed that pricing has not been a challenge to us because most of our materials are locally sourced and delivered without necessarily compromising the quality and standard of work. Mr. Biodun Otunola, the CEO of Planet Projects, a transportation solutions company from Lagos, noted that Kaduna will experience a population explosion in years to come due to development, and one of the ways to handle this is through public transport system. The public transport system must be considered alongside the Urban Renewal Development Initiative. He suggested that government should make Kaduna a model where public transport is well developed and comfortable so that people don't have to think of owning a car. And he concluded that one of the reasons why most businesses don't last is because people always think of owning a car with their little profit, and this is largely due to the poor state of the public transportation system. He concluded by suggesting that Kaduna State should prioritize the development of its bus rapid transit system and the light rail system. That is the end or the summary of what transpired yesterday, the first day of the Kaduna Investment Summit 5.0. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, it would be foolhardy for any man to think that they could say something in your presence and you would forget. Indeed, the Kaduna Economic and Investment Summit started as an audacious and ambitious dream. But today, from Tomato Jos, by the way, I don't know why we put Jos there. It should be Tomato Kaduna. But from Tomato Jos to Olam and the urban renewal going on across the state, it is obvious that it has moved from being a dream to a reality. And what's more, it was the first of its kind in northern Nigeria. And can I make bold to say that it has remained the most consistent? Thank you so much for that recap, Your Excellency. At this point, we would like to go on to take the address from our guest speaker, His Highness, Muhammad Sanusi II, Vice Chairman, Kaduna Investment Promotion Agency. Your Highness.
Maybe I should move closer to the mic. Let me see if I can read. Okay, good. Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Kano State, my brother Nasser Ahmed Arufai, Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor, um, members of the State Executive Council, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor and pleasure for me to be here with you again at the Kaduna Investment Conference, which has become part of my own annual calendar, usually a marker for new trouble whenever whenever I speak. And let me begin by congratulating the state for continuing with this extremely useful conference. And not just that, for making sure it's not a talk shop. Every year we see progress and actual implementation of decisions that are taken in previous conferences. And sometimes when one listens to these presentations, one wonders if one has anything really to add to what has been said and what has already been done. Be that as it may, I would like to make a few remarks on the theme of the conference, infrastructure, industrialization, and innovation, and just try to take a step back and see what we can learn from the history of our country and why we have stalled and what we may need to do and what we can learn from other countries as a guide to what at the national and subnational level we can and should expect and can and should work towards. So I've put together a few slides, and if we can go to the very first one, that slide, can we have the slides up? Okay, next slide, please. It's not there. Okay. I thought we should put this slide up so that we begin to, the question here is, why is Nigeria stalling? Why do we need private investment and how much can we expect from government? I have a number of African countries on this slide: Angola, Botswana, Cote d'Ivoire, Egypt, Ethiopia, Ghana, Kenya, Mauritius, Morocco, Nigeria, Tanzania, Uganda, and Zambia. And with each country, we have the GDP per capita, but also tax revenues per capita and development spending per capita. Now, if you take Nigeria, this was 2019. Nominal GDP was 2.4 billion. That should be 240, I think, billion US dollars. GDP, 2,400 US dollars GDP per capita. Our tax revenues per capita was only $75, and our development spending was 36. This is at the federal level. Now compare this to Kenya, where the GDP per capita of 2,151, roughly 90% of Nigeria's per capita GDP. But Kenya was able to raise $280 per capita and invest $280 per capita on development. So Kenya which has 90% of our per capita GDP, is able to raise 4 times as much in tax per capita and spend 7 times as much per capita on development. Now, these numbers are extremely important when we begin to hope that the federal government can give us development. I mean, for the federal government to get to a point where we are anywhere near where Kenya is doing, the government has to multiply its tax revenues per capita 4 times and also multiply its development spending 7 times. How long do states have to wait? And how long does the country have to wait for the government to raise these revenues and make these investments? So I think we need to be honest, at least in the short and medium term, and realize that the ability of government to steer this country into development is limited in terms of spending, and its best option is to spend a lot of time on business environment reform and invite private sector investment into these areas. And next slide, please. Now, look at the states, and I see progress that's been made by Kaduna on IGR. At current oil prices, given the reports that we have, only 2 out of 36 states collect enough revenue to meet overheads. So there's a need to generate, to have internally generated revenue. There's a whole question of the tax regime, who controls the tax, is the federal or state government, the issue of multiple taxation. And therefore, even where you have a determination and a willingness, there are certain constraints, legal, institutional, political constraints to that. But again, this further explains why we cannot rely just on the state governments to finance development. Now, one of the things we need to say is, why haven't we made progress? And what should we be doing? And look at the solutions. And we go back to our past. Let's take the next slide, please. What can our history tell us about the potential solutions for the current period of stagnation? Before there was oil, before we had Chinese loans, before independence, Nigeria's economy was both better diversified and consistently in a trade surplus. What we have here are more than 80 years pre-independence, for which records exist. Nigeria ran a trade surplus in all but 15 of those years. In all 15 of more than 80 years, we had trade surpluses with the rest of the world, and in many years, the surpluses were meaningful. So if we want to understand where we should be going, and maybe I suppose Kaduna has already understood it, but further encourage us on the path we have taken, we need to look at the past and say, what did we lose in the post-independence period? Next slide. Why was Nigeria successful in the pre-Ord period? It was diversification, dynamism in trading sector, and diversity of export base. Look at rubber, cocoa, palm oil, ivory, hides, palm kernels, groundnuts, cotton, tin ore, and so on. Because diversity meant the country was less vulnerable to a terms of trade shock, driven by only one export. And for those of us in our generation, those of us who have grown up in the oil period, we've suffered, I think, on about 3 or 4 occasions now, this boom and bust that's come with the price of oil. We have seen highs and lows. We've seen friends who have become multimillionaires and paupers. We have seen people who sent their children abroad to school only to bring them back. In fact, even this year, people are bringing their children back. If your child is in the UK and you have to buy pounds sterling at over 600 naira, you move him to Cyprus and maybe to Niger, and to Republic of Benin, Cotonou, and so on. Because this is a reality. It affects us in a direct and personal way. And I think one of the most important things a government needs to do is to understand the impact of um, wrong economic decisions or adverse economic uh, um, adverse economic occurrences on the human being and the individual. I keep saying that most people do not look at the human beings. We look at all these numbers. Inflation has gone up by X percent or by 2%, and we just walk away. Break down the CPI, go down to food, go down to what people eat on a daily basis, and think of the millions of people who can no longer afford to eat. And then 2% becomes a massive number, and a serious number. GDP has declined by 1%. In an exam, you move from 67% to 66%, it's no deal. It's no big deal. Your GDP falls by 1%. If your GDP is $250 billion, that is $2.5 billion of income wiped out. If you think of $2.5 billion in terms of human beings that are earning 20, 30,000 naira per month, how many millions of Nigerians are wiped out, and how many families have become poor? So these numbers are extremely important, and getting economic decisions right, the big decisions, will continue to be critical to the welfare of our people. So you have this diversity. We also had significant value addition in places like Kano. You had value addition to leather. You had value addition to cotton. Kaduna, the same thing. And this was the secret of pre-independence Nigeria. But even that had certain limitations. We had diversity, but this diversity was within commodity exports. And as we know from development theory, over the long term, the terms of trade shift against primary exporters. And therefore, any country that's in the global environment, any country that is operating on a global scale needs to move away and diversify not just its product base, but diversify away from primary production to secondary and tertiary sectors. And I chose one country that's broadly similar to Nigeria over a 30-year period to give us an example of what other countries have done. Next slide, please. This is Malaysia. This was Malaysia in 1970 and Malaysia in 2000. I have used the color code just so that visually you can see how Malaysian exports have transformed over a 30-year period. On the far left, you have crude rubber, you have coke and wood. Between them, in 1970, they contributed about 55%, almost 60% of Malaysian GDP. Now look at that color on the next slide after 30 years. The blue, electric machinery apparatus, office machines, and automatic data processing, telecoms, products manufacturing. On the right, by 2000, had become over 27 now plus 21, 48, that's 60% of the exports of Malaysia. Now, if you look at the left, that same color, 30 years before in 1970, all those sectors contributed less than 2% of exports. This is a 30-year period where one country in Asia had done this. In this period, Malaysian GDP per capita increased from $310 to $4,045. So it was growth plus diversification, but also diversification into higher value areas of the GDP. Now, I don't want to be a party spoiler, but next slide, please. This is Nigeria. This is Nigerian exports between 1985 and 2015, in the same 30 years. We also have 30 years. Do you see any change visually? Do I need to say anything? We have not moved. This is the difference between us and Asia. Nothing else. They moved. Please go back to the other slide. I think it's important. Just look at, go back, previous slide, Malaysia. One slide back. Just look at this. And then come back to Nigeria. Next slide. No. So, and in this period, interestingly, Nigeria's GDP per capita also increased from $345 to $2,655. So we were growing, but we did not diversify. That's one. And that explains the huge levels of poverty in the country. It explains the huge levels of inequality in the country. It explains the vulnerability of the economy to shocks in terms of trade. It also explains the relatively slow pace of growth, because when we started, when Malaysia started, it started from a GDP per capita level lower than Nigeria's GDP per capita in 1985. It started from $310 to over $4,000. We've started from 345 to what, $2,055. And now when you add inflation and add devaluation, and begin to look at purchasing power parity, the GDP per capita numbers actually look inflated. Next slide, please. So one way to look at it is also to understand the difference between production and consumption. So take one example, smartphones. Many of us think because we have a widespread use of a smartphone, we have leapfrogged, we are developing. But there are people who are consumers of technology and people who are producers of technology. We've had all these investments in towers, we've had broadband, we've had internet. What have we done with it? Have we used it to produce, or have we been consumers? You pick up your phone, which is produced in China. You go on the internet. You order a product, a pair of shoes produced in France. It comes to you at home. What are you consuming? You're consuming the smartphone, you're consuming the shoes, you're creating income for those who produce the smartphones and those who produce the shoes. What really have you gained? So what we count as progress just opens us up just new and newer ways of intensifying the marginalization of countries and turn us into consumers of products. Now compare this, for example, to someone who picks up the smartphone and then produces a Nollywood movie and then uses the smartphone to distribute the movie. That is production. So we think, we've got all these investments, and that's why I like this about technology. Got all these investments in technology. We need now to invest in the human capital to have the innovation. There is enough investment in towers, enough investment in networks, and the federal government says we're going to invest in broadband with the ESP. Fine. What can Kaduna State do to produce young people in Kaduna State who know better than pick up the mobile phone to send WhatsApp messages to their friends and forward gossips and stories, who realize that this phone in their hand is actually a ticket to wealth. I think for me, this has been the difference between us and the Asians, between us and the Malaysians and the Indonesians. And I keep telling people all the time, try and read. There's this interesting book by, I think, Peter Lewis. It's called Growing Apart. I believe we discussed this. It's amazing. You just look at how Nigeria and Indonesia, every excuse Nigeria has for not developing, Indonesia has. They have a large population, they are multi-ethnic, multi-religious, they have had civil wars, they have had military dictatorships, they have even had corruption. Corruption is our excuse. Sukarto, Malaysia has had massive. Why did Malaysia develop? This was the difference. Move away from being a consumer of technology to a producer. Move away from a consumer attitude to electricity to production. We invest billions and billions of dollars in a national grid, invest billions in transmission, invest billions in distribution, bring electricity to you. What is it for? To watch Arsenal and Manchester United, you know, to have air conditioning, a fan. Whereas for others, every electron of electricity delivered makes you a carpenter, an electrician, an artisan. Fires your generator for irrigation. For every naira you spend on electricity, you are earning 10, 20 naira. That's why at very low levels of poverty, income elasticity is far, far more important than price elasticity. People would pay anything for electricity if they knew how to turn electricity into an earning capacity. When people cry, it's because they are paying for power and earning nothing from it. If you go to a village and give a man electricity and he's paying 100 naira per kilowatt hour, and he can turn that if he has a small freezer and his wife is making kununzaki and he is selling, and every month he's spending X thousand on electricity and making 4 times more from selling kununzaki, he's happy. He'll pay twice to get the next freezer. And when we focus on, and that's why these things about tariff reviews and tariff conversation, I think the government is not having that conversation in a manner that convinces people. People need to understand that you complain about tariffs because you're thinking of tariffs only from a consumption perspective. If you look at electricity as a critical input into production, into productivity, into earnings, if you look at electricity as an economic resource, look at how much money you could make. There's a difference between not earning a thing and earning something. There's a difference between extreme poverty and rising above the poverty line. You know, the Chinese, I spoke to a Chinese economist one day, and he said, you know, forget all these numbers. The Chinese government has always focused on only 2 numbers: the number of Chinese at work and the number of Chinese who have electricity. Because electricity per capita is such a critical determinant for moving people out of poverty. And so for me, I think we need to interrogate our mindset. We need to think over and over again as to how we understand economics, how we understand what we see, how do we understand technology, how do we understand electricity? Are we consumers or are we producers? And what I think Kaduna State is doing and what we need to continue, and that's why investment in human capital is so important. Produce young men who know that, look, they are worth more than just using their telephone to import a pair of shoes. You know, to know that they, you know, this is something that they can use. And they've got ideas. Encourage them, have incubation centers, and then scale these ideas up. And that's how, in no time, you're then not worried about waiting for oil money. You're not worried about going to FAC. You're not worried about looking for handouts from the federal government. In fact, they will not be interested as in whether the governor is spending money on this or spending money on that. So long as you create that environment and give them the skills, they will take advantage of what you have. So the development of infrastructure has become so much decoupled from technological training. We've had this need for quick cost solutions. We just go and buy towers, mainly from China, and then there are no skills transfers. So as I said, the federal government and the CSP says we're going to have broadband penetration. I read the document. We're going to deal with Google. We're going to deal with Facebook, and it's fantastic. But are you going to have broadband in Nigeria just so that people can continue doing the same thing? WhatsApp? Or should we take advantage of this anti-COVID process of investing in broadband, but this time understanding that this is an economic resource and building at every point in this country where we supply technology, what can we build on it? How can we give digital education to rural areas? How can we use technology to deliver healthcare, primary healthcare to the rural areas? How can we use technology to train young people in robotics? How do we leapfrog? You know, we keep thinking about reindustrialization and we're thinking in the 1960s. You want to go back? We can't go back to the groundnut pyramids. If you build groundnut pyramids in Kano today, they're not going to impress anyone in the world. In the 60s, they were great. In 2010, when people are going to Mars, groundnut pyramids, is that really the limit of our ambition? you know, so you know, history was good, but we can't go back into it. Even I know Kaduna would like to revive all those textiles, and it's great to have the textiles, but maybe when we build the textiles, we should ask how many people are wearing African prints compared to how much we spend on suits and shirts and ties and underwear. Are those not the kind of textiles we should be looking at? Garments? Or do we go back to reproducing textiles that were for a market in the 1950s and 60s? In other words, yes, our resource endowments are important, but what determines where we focus should be where is the market, where is the world today? And it's really Generation Z. What do they want? What are they buying? What are they interested in? Next slide, please. So if you look at, it was a structural change in Southeast Asia, movement from agriculture to formal manufacturing and services. In Africa, all of Africa, apart from South Africa maybe, the bulk of the transmission has been basically informal movement from agriculture, manufacturing, services. That's the bulk. They're all in the informal sector. The really organized sector has been manufacturing. But look at manufacturing and how we have underemphasized it, given the fact that it's much higher value than primary production. Manufacturing GDP in Africa has fallen from 14% to 10%, from 40% in 1990 to 10% today. But manufacturing continues to employ 8 to 9% of Africans. What does that mean? We have been having decline in productivity, while the rest of the world has been increasing productivity. If you had these same numbers for the United States, you would see manufacturing as a fraction of GDP increasing and as an employer decreasing, because we need to, and that again goes back to the same point, human capital, the productivity of the human beings. So it's not just enough to go into manufacturing. If you're going to manufacture and productivity is going down, you will not have the GDP. Summary, parts of Africa continue to grow very quickly, but without a more enlightened industrial policy, this growth will not translate into meaningful job creation. It's got to be, you've got to think through it. You've got to make sure that your projects are linked. You don't just build a road here, a rail line there, an airport there, without knowing how they're going to translate into an economy. Ethiopia has a fantastic airport. So it says, okay, fine, we've got these airlines that fly every day to Europe. You can have a fantastic flower business. Right there in Addis, you harvest, put them on a plane, the same day they're being sold on the streets of London. Okay, now you plant your flowers in Jos. For them to go to London, you have to move from Jos to Kaduna, from Kaduna maybe to Lagos, move them through traffic. By the time the flowers by the time they get to London, they're withered. So even when we build airports, it shouldn't just be because people want to fly from Abuja to Kano for a wedding. really, you follow the economy, follow the money in investing in infrastructure and put everything together. Now you go to these countries, you land at an airport, you've got your train station there, you've got your bus station, and generally you move from one economic zone to another. And yes, in the course of your journey, there'll be residential areas. As people get on a light train from central Kaduna to go to work in the factory, there will be those who are going for naming ceremonies and weddings, but you're not building the train for people who are going to go for naming ceremonies and weddings, because the train will not even pay its way back. People need to go and earn something anyway to pay the fares. So this is in Kaduna, it's more or less preaching to the converted. Like I said, when I was invited to join the Investment Promotion Authority, I said, well, look, you guys have done so well. I don't know how much value I have to add, but I'll take it as an honorary appointment, just like you take an honorary doctorate. Public debt has risen. We all know the fiscal position of government is not strong. We spend in huge percentage of our revenue on servicing debt. You have a high rate of inflation. The central bank is reaching the limit of its balance sheet. Honestly, I don't see how much more the central bank can continue to expand its balance sheet. And we're seeing the consequences in inflation. We're seeing the consequences in exchange rate. So we should not put so much pressure on the central bank. We should not have so many expectations on the government. And the government should not itself take upon itself responsibilities it cannot take. You can't continue borrowing and sinking us into indebtedness to provide development today. Spend more time creating the environment, spend more time on reforms, spend more time attracting local and foreign investment while you fix your balance sheet and then are able to prepare. So in the absence of tighter lending standards from China, it's up to African policymakers to ensure that borrowed money is put to productive use. And the criteria should be recombinant value instead of immediate raw material availability. So these are my thoughts generally, and I hope that I've added something to the context of the conversation without being I'm trying to avoid being specific these days. It keeps me out of trouble, so nobody can say I'm talking about it. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Highness. Blows one away, knowing that pre-independence, 15 years out of 80 years, we had a trade surplus. Mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. And it's interesting, Your Highness, that you picked Malaysia, because there's this urban legend that has piqued, a lot of curiosities in Nigeria, whether or not Malaysia came to Nigeria to pick palm seedlings in the 70s. It's an urban legend, depends on who is telling the story.
It is true.
It is true. Okay. Mind-blowing. It is obvious then, Your Highness, that like you said, diversification, radical diversification and innovation is what is needed, like yesterday. Thank you so much, Your Highness. We will be moving on to the launching of the Kaduna report by His Excellency Malam Nasser Ahmed El Rufai, Governor of Kaduna State. Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline, for inviting me to launch the Kaduna report. But I want to inform everyone that this Kaduna report is the initiative of the Kaduna Investment Promotion Agency and the Economic Development Council of the Kaduna State Government. So I would like, with the permission of His Highness, to delegate the launch of this Kaduna report to the chairman of the Kaduna State Economic Development Council, our senior advisor and counselor, Jimmy Lawal, who also sits on the board of Kaduna Investment Promotion Agency. Jimmy, please introduce and launch the Kaduna.
Thank you, sir. Your Excellency, Madam Nasir El-Rufai, Governor of Kaduna State, Your Excellency, Deputy Governor, Dr. Adiza Sauba Balarabe, Chairman of Kadipa in absentia, Your Royal Highness, our brother and friend and Vice Chairman of Kadipa, Muhammad Sanusi II, distinguished guests, sorry, Her Excellency also just walked through the door, Her Excellency Hajia Omi El-Rufai, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to day 2 of Kadinvest 5.0. My task is to launch the Kaduna 2020 report prepared for us by the Oxford Business Group. The report is in 3 sections. It starts with an overview of Kaduna states and steps taken by this administration since 2015 to develop the state and grow our businesses. The second section of the report is a detailed analysis of the sectors that have assisted us to grow in the last 5 years. And the final section looks at the investment opportunities available in the states. Just to recap, in essence, the 2 important sections are what we've done in the last 5 years and the final section, what we plan to do in the next few years. What we did in the last 5 years was informed by our State Development Plan 2016 to 2020, and what we plan to do in the future, the sectors that we want our investors to focus on, will be informed by the State Development Plan 2021 to 2025 that the Economic Development Council is working on. It's nearing completion. I want to take a moment to thank His Royal Highness for his keynote speech, because it's as if he was part of the council when we're debating what our State Development Plan 2021-25 should be. I saw our Commissioner of Planning and Budget shaking his head as His Highness was speaking, because we decided that we're going to go for knowledge-based economy as our new goal. And this is exactly what the message from His Highness is, as if he was there with us. We believe that we can achieve that growth in 2 ways. One is to look at our primary products. Kaduna State is #1 producer in at least 5 commodities, starting from maize, to soya beans, to ginger, to tomatoes, and to sorghum. What have we been doing as a state? We've been basically growing more and more maize and exporting the raw maize, sometimes even before they were harvested. Those who are going to take them out of Kaduna will have paid the farmers, come and do the harvest and take them out of the states. No value addition. Remember the diagrams, the 2 color-coded graphs that His Highness showed? We're not adding value.
So what we plan to do now is to use our Green Agro-Allied Industrial Zone, Agri Economic Zone, to get investors to begin to add value to our primary products. Instead of taking corn out of maize out of Kaduna, please add value and let's export cornstarch. The same thing goes for our textiles, cotton textile garment sector. We used to just, produce African prints and add value to our cotton, but now the new vogue is fashion park. Okay, we can make suits, we can make shirts for exports, even St. Michael underwears can be produced because that's what the market wants to buy. So we're going to be moving from the old textile industry, the old Kaduna textiles into a fashion park where we can talk about what is the latest fashion, what do people want to wear. That's what we're going to produce. So thank you very much, Your Royal Highness. We're already working on it. The second leg of the future development is in the skills development for digital economy. And that is the issue of what is your mobile phone or your tablet or your laptop being used for. If you can have digital skills, and this is why we thank the governor for giving us a good CIO who is supporting the transformation of our economy so we can add more value to how many citizens of Kaduna states are computer literate and with skills that they can stay in Kaduna and earn dollars by working for Microsoft or Cisco or any IT company without having to leave our state. This is the second leg of our next state development plan. And this is what we got the Oxford Business Group to document in the Kaduna Report 2020 that we're launching this afternoon. And it's also being translated to our State Development Plan 2021 to 2025. If we can deliver on that, build on what we've done from 2016 to 2020, we would have left a better state than we met it. We'll have been able to create better jobs, more jobs and better jobs. We'll probably be able to also add value by earning dollars, export-led growth, and change the economy from a basic economy to a knowledge-based economy. So Your Excellency and Royal Highness, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce the Kaduna Report 2020. It's a booklet that will be available for all our investors for them to see when they come into Kaduna. They don't have to come and start doing their own survey, their own feasibility study. They will have information readily available to them on all the sectors that are available in Kaduna states, our priority sectors for development and for growth, and they can then just fit into their own areas of investment and perhaps go into a green economic zone or green agro-allied industrial zone and be able to plug and play. Just bring your equipment. You don't need to come and do your own building, do your own roads, be looking for your own power, your water supply. We want to have these industrial zones ready for you. Just bring your equipment and plug and play. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
And thank you so much, sir. That was Jimmy Lawal, Senior Advisor and Counselor to the Governor of Kaduna State. Thank you, sir. We will be going on a brief interlude, and then we will quickly come back. We promise not to take too much of your time today for our plenary sessions. We're going to be running through them quick march, and hopefully we will be able to keep to the time that you see on the program of activities for today. And so that brief interlude, shortly after which we will be having a documentary, and that documentary will be morphing, just like yesterday, into a plenary session. Like I said, we promise to keep this quick, so please do stay with us.
Blue Camel Energy is a leading power backup and renewable energy firm operating in Nigeria with over 10 years experience in the renewable business. We design and integrate solution which cuts across all levels of energy demand, ranging from small household solar and hybrid systems to solar mini-grid systems and industrial power backup systems. Blue Camel Energy is an indigenous company that has a vision to provide innovative, cost-effective, environmental friendly and reliable power to every Nigerian. We have young and innovative team members who work together and are driven to share the same vision, values and goals of Blue Camel Energy. Blue Camel Energy works with seasoned and world-class digital equipment manufacturers in solar energy technology to bring clean and sustainable energy to our valued customers. Blue Camel Energy is an environment-friendly renewable energy company offering a broad portfolio of cost-effective renewable energy products and solutions to various sectors like the banking, agricultural, real estate, health, rural electrification and education, and MSMEs. In the past years, there has been a negative trend about solar street lighting projects in Nigeria. However, we are making the smartest move in solar street light deployment in Nigeria with our model low capex, no opex, anti-theft, including capacity building and youth empowerment component. We believe the future of energy is renewable.
The world evolves every day, and new innovation and technological advancement is key to this evolution because it changes the manner in which things are done, characterized by the simplification of complex processes and improved efficiency in all facets of life. Most businesses today leverage hugely on technology and innovation in order to operate maximally and thrive advantageously amongst its
ICT,
competitors.
former managing
The
director, Galaxy
administration of
Network.
Leave
governance
all
and
that out. Just
reform
introduce me
in
as what I am now.
2018
Okay.
ushered
Yeah,
in
leave all that out.
inclusive, innovative
Okay.
administrative practices and technology-based
Okay,
solutions to the
kindly
process of
country manager
governance
Microsoft.
instead.
I think is important.
This just shows
Okay,
the
then put Galaxy as
understanding
well.
of
Just say vast
administration
experience
and
in
the
IT.
role innovation
You
and
can.
technology plays in growing and sustaining today's economies. As such, this understanding has continued to spread
You're
among
on
the
now.
people of Kaduna State and
Mute
has been
on
framed
mute.
to bed
That's
new
standard.
innovations
Yeah.
integrated with
Questions.
technology
You'll be seeing
to help
questions.
businesses. In 2017, I got the idea
Yeah.
of building Piant, and the idea gets started from me building an invoicing platform for businesses to receive payments. Eventually, Piant grew from just providing invoicing systems to providing full-page payment services. So when I say full-page payment services, I mean things as regards to receiving payments, sending payments out of the country or within the country in at a whole. So at the moment, we have different businesses utilizing Piant for payments. By the end of 2017, we have only about 1,000 merchants who are using Piant, and we have processed over 100 million naira in transaction volume. By the end of 2018, we have processed over 1 billion naira in transaction volume. So we multiplied our transaction volume by 10. Today, averagely, we are processing over 1 billion naira in transaction volume monthly. Another technological innovation is a school management software called Schoolmo, designed specifically to help track performances at schools.
We try to help schools measure data and transform that into using it to help students. So you go to certain schools and you ask what is the improvement of students who take mathematics between last term and this term. Was there a drop in performance or a dip in performance or a tip in performance? Most schools don't know. You try to measure sciences. Everybody who took sciences. What's the comparison between last term and this term? That kind of data is readily now available to schools. Even retention data. that data is not measured. And this data is important because if you can measure very well, you'll be able to see pain areas, and then you'll be able to, shine in a lot of effort there and be able to do well.
But ask them like.
Ifix Technologies is a technological company based in Kaduna with focus on making technological leverage affordable to SMEs.
Our focus really is for SMEs. We are building products that SMEs can afford. Most times when you ask an SME to get online, build a website, they find it too expensive to build a website because they would prefer to use 100,000 naira to invest back into their company than for them to go and use it to build a website. So our focus basically is to see how we can serve the small and medium enterprises. And we've been able to build over 200 websites for small and medium enterprises, both within Kaduna State and outside Kaduna State.
So at Recognition, we build software mostly, focused on getting businesses to get more efficient with technology. So a lot of that cuts across a lot of things. It could be things as simple as process design or actually building ERPs or apps for particular reasons.
Roundstone is a technology company dealing mainly in bespoke software development, both for private sector and public sector. So we go into a location, we identify what their unique problems are, and then we use technology to solve or help them solve those problems. That's basically what we do.
The Kaduna State government is also playing its part by going into partnerships with various technological firms in a bid to further encourage the integration of technology and innovations to businesses in the state.
We're in partnership with the likes of IBM, the renowned IBM technology company. We're also in partnership with Pre-Ord Nigeria Limited, popularly known as Collab, also in developing hub centers and all, but they're there in partnership, they're helping us. Also, we're actually working at going to a relationship also with Icts and trying to build a skills park here in Kaduna. We'll have all the technology people coming in and those that will be able to work, whether from the innovative perspective, or from agri-tech perspective, also, and come in and use those facilities to actually develop themselves and grow their businesses. So along those lines, there's a lot that's being done. Like I say, it's also being put in place to help or encourage and help businesses actually settling very fast, particularly at the fast pace that things are moving around the world, technology-wise these days.
There is no limit to what can be achieved when technology and innovation is integrated to businesses. And tremendously, Kaduna State possesses the complete capacity to make this happen seamlessly.
I'm ready.
With global standards assured.
Welcome back from that interlude there and the documentary, which is titled Technology and Innovation in Business. Like I said, we will be having our first plenary session. Our panelists and moderator are already seated. Our moderator today for this session that is tagged Technology and Innovation in Business is Mr. Gerald Ilukwe. Mr. Gerald Ilukwe is Chief Information Officer and Special Advisor, ICT. He has vast experience, of course, in ICT world. As a matter of fact, he is the former Managing Director, Galaxy Bone, and also Pioneer Country Manager, Microsoft. We welcome Mr. Gerald Ilukwe. Before I hand over to you, Mr. Gerald, I would like to quickly tell everyone who is linked up to us, if you have questions for this session, please do go and type it in the Q&A section of the live feed. Do not write it under comments. There's a special place for questions. So just type it there so that we can take it and pass it on to Mr. Ilukwe as we see your comments. Mr. Gerald Ilukwe, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jackie. Good morning, Your Excellency, Your Excellencies, Your Royal Highness, colleagues in Kaduna State Government, and everybody watching us wherever you are. Thank you and welcome to the technology session for Kadinvest 5.0. On this session, I'm joined by very young and able team here, panelists. I'm actually the outlier here. So we have Sanusi Ismaila, who is the founder of Collab and Precognition Media. He's a serial entrepreneur. He plies his trade in IT in Kaduna here, and he's done very well for himself. He's the founder of Collab, which is Kaduna's first innovation hub, and where startups like Payant, which processes at least 2 billion naira of payments every month, and Schoolmo, and which we saw in the video, an education technology platform, were founded. They were birthed from his Collab. Before starting out on his own, he has 5 years work experience, including big companies like MTN. I also have on the panel, coming in from Lagos, Muyiwa Matoluko. He's a co-founder of TechPoint Africa. As a writer and a journalist, Muyiwa has been writing and speaking about technology and its effects on lifestyle, business, and society for over 7 years. One thing I'll tell you that's very interesting about Muyiwa is that Muyiwa was actually responsible for bringing Jack Dorsey, CEO of Twitter, to Nigeria. So, and we're hoping that he'll do that and other big names for us in Kaduna by virtue of this association. Welcome, Muyiwa. How's Lagos?
Very much. Lagos is very fine. Thanks for having me.
Kaduna is a place to be. I don't know what you're doing there. Okay, and we also have Dr. Lanre Phillips from HP. Dr. Phillips is a seasoned professional whose experience has spanned over 20 years in FMCG, banking, and telco, and the technology industry. He's currently enterprise manager for HP for Central Africa. And he's worked in the social enterprise space in various business hubs. And he's vastly experienced, and I hope he brings the wealth of his experience to his participation on this panel. His interest is rooted in the firm belief that people remain a key investment in every organization. So he's here to tell us how people are the best assets of an organization and how technology can make people be all they can be. To my immediate left is Hafsa Jumare. Hafsa is she's nothing less than a star in the ICT space. She's been doing it all here. She's done it very well. She's actually by training a behavioral economist, which is probably why she has a very good knowledge of consumer behavior. And her core area is helping MSMEs, providing them with the finance and market information they require to succeed. Her most recent work experience include Busara Center in Nigeria and Kenya, Environmental Economic Policy Research Unit of South Africa. She's the CEO of Amana, and her work entails overseeing execution of research and product development, that is while in Amana, internal processes and staffing, and MSME outreach and support strategies. She shuttles between Kaduna and Abuja, but I think she's gradually moving her business back to Kaduna. We have that assurance from you, right?
Yes, we'll talk about it.
Good. Okay. We also have Shola Alagbe. I think he's also in Lagos. Do we have Shola here? Hi, Shola. How are you?
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Gerald.
Okay. Shola is a design thinking practitioner, leading businesses, NGOs, and startups through digital transformation and futuristic thinking. Currently, he's CTO of Total Media Group, and one of their offerings is virtual tours and media company. When we were having the dry run for this session, I asked him, I said, beyond, Nigeria is not much of a tourism country. Is there more to virtual tours than tourism? And we got to understand that virtual tourism is also a very good way for students to learn in terms of education, very big applications in education. His company also provides services in e-conferencing and web presence. He's a systems developer, digital transformation and innovation officer, which he acquired a degree from in Bowen University. He enjoys contributing to cryptocurrency, machine learning, video conferencing, code base, and teaching on all these subjects. He takes pleasure in agriculture, IoT, education, and the minimalistic technology, which is what design thinking is all about. He's been a TEDx organizer, STEAM education, and interestingly, he's an English to Yoruba translator. So that's your panel, and we hope we're going to have a very exciting time. His Royal Highness has spoken about the role of broadband, and I'm happy to let you know that Kaduna fully gets that, and right now, His Excellency has crashed the cost of right-of-way. In fact, we're having an internal debate. Should it be free or how close to 145 naira can it be? But we're committed in Kaduna State to ensuring that all the metropolises of Zaria, Kafanchan, and Kaduna itself are connected to 4G within the next 1 year, by the middle of next year, and indeed the whole state by the end of 2021. We will have 3G across the entire state, broadband. That means we will democratize digital access, and everybody, irrespective of where you are and who you are on the food chain, you will be able to get access to the benefits of digital technology. It's also, of course, at the high end, something which makes Kaduna, which retains Kaduna's position as a leading economic destination for doing business. Kaduna is number one in ease of doing business. And you cannot attain or sustain that position without active application of technology, both in interacting with government and interacting with your stakeholders and your ecosystem. We are providing incentives. How are we going to do this? We're going to provide incentives to the telecom operators in rolling out base stations to cover everywhere, every part of this state. At the moment, Kaduna has, I think, 85% penetration of GSM among the citizenry, but in terms of landmass, we actually have just 48% coverage. We're going to ramp this up to 100% by the end of next year. The government is also aggressively and progressively promoting the delivery of services online. Whether you're applying for COO for your land, or you want to register your business premises, or you want to apply for your tax clearance certificate, right now, today, we have it all covered. We're also currently working on online processing of applications for development permits, and I imagine that by the end of this month, on the latest, we should be there. These are active projects. We're also concluding our e-judiciary system. The judiciary as a recourse for business, dispute resolution is key, and we understand that, and we've been working on it, and also, by the end of this month, that should be in place. Our judiciary system will be completely automated and leverage the current reforms in the judiciary, which also allows for technology in the courts. Kaduna is undergoing the urban renewal program. A key element of the urban renewal program is that I believe that with our urban renewal program, Kaduna will be only second to Abuja, where, of course, His Excellency achieved a lot of landmark developmental initiatives. Kaduna will have fiber ducting for all its major roads, and the new developments of the green economic zone and the green agro-RI zone will also be equipped with fiber infrastructure, ducting infrastructure. So it's a matter of partnering with providers to come in. We don't have to dig, and we'll roll out, and it will be cost effective. These are just some of the many initiatives we are embarking upon. The Senior Advisor Counselor has spoken to the fact that we firmly believe that the future belongs to the digital economy. Whether it's in human capital development or in service delivery, Kaduna will do whatever it takes to be in the forefront of the vanguard of this 21st century economy, which is also, of course, what we talk about, the fourth industrial revolution. I think I've spoken enough, and I will take this to my co-panelists. So there's a key question here. The topic is technology and innovation for economic development, sustainable economic development. So Dr. Phillips, tell me something. Do you think that technology innovation, should it be demand-driven or should it be supply-driven?
Thank you very much, Gerald. I'm glad to be part of Kadinvest 5.0, and I'm also glad to have been a witness to so many things that the Kaduna State government is doing in terms of technology. What I see about technology is that it has come to stay. Even prior to COVID, so much has been done in terms of advancing technology in this part of the world. So it's not just because there's a demand for technology, but also because we found it to be the new mode of living. What I see differently is that there's a mismatch between the suppliers of technology and the people who need technology. So what I see a lot of times is that suppliers of technology create this technology, so to speak. Meanwhile, the people that need the technology are actually asking for something else. I give an example. In a rural area, for instance, you have farmers dealing with agriculture and all of that, and probably all that they need is not an app to expose their products to the world or to the urban centers. Probably all that they need is just to have an SMS solution, just to be able to tell the outside world when their crops are ready for harvest or the volume of crops that they have in place. Okay, so I think what we need to do is to find a connect between the suppliers of technology and the people requiring technology. That's the demand. And if we're able to find that connect, a lot more people would understand the benefits of technology and tap into technology. Because I still see a situation where a lot of people imagine that when we speak about technology, we're only talking about large rooms with big servers and the likes. Technology is actually closer to us than we think.
Okay. Thank you. See, okay. Your point is taken, and it's all about the connect, right? Give the market what it wants. Even though, like I said to you earlier on, Steve Jobs was famously quoted to have said that sometimes the market only knows what it wants when you give it to them. So I will take that and move on to Hafsa. What do you think the government, we know, you know, and I know that Kaduna is a state in a hurry. We want to make Kaduna great again. Is there anything the government should be doing to deepen the penetration of technology for the economic development of this state?
Okay, I'll just, before I completely answer the question, I think I'll jump on the previous question that you asked. Okay. So one thing that people keep talking about is this demand versus supply thing, but technology as it is there to make things simpler for people. The demand is always salient. As long as you can make things simpler for someone, they will take it on, right? So thinking about whether the demand is there or not, I would say that that is not the issue on the table. So now jumping on the question that you asked, I think Kaduna could be doing better at getting people the market information they need to come and actually confront economic challenges. I'll give an example. For instance, when we went to pilot our product. We went into Kachia. We were trying to understand, oh, how do we get credit to you? We went into Barnawa. We went into Zaria. And what was emerging, I think at that time, was that a lot of people were simply struggling to actually get buyers for their products, right? But then if you focus on the narrative that you find online, all of that, people were talking about credit, let's focus on credit. So the information was just not there on what people needed. And then where the people were, it took us a long time to find out what they were focused on, what they were producing. And I think for anyone that wants to set up a tech business to address economic development, they need to actually know what the challenges are. Where are these people that need the problems to be solved? What are the types of problems they're facing, and what are the best ways to solve them? So I think market information.
So market information is what you think that government can do better in providing. Yes. Is this government in of itself or government in partnership with, how would you, let's just drill down into that a little bit.
I think government could partner with private sector, especially the private sector companies that have found efficient ways to generate data. So in the course of trying to set up in Kaduna, we found that there was this, I think, World Bank project that had come in, worked with eHealth Africa to map all the terrains in Nigeria, where all the roads were. And this was like, what I think was to optimize logistics, right? And this is private sector that's done this, eHealth Africa. And if the government was to jump on what they had done, it would be easier to push it forward than to start something from scratch as the government itself.
Okay, all right. So government can leverage on what's being done out there. That's fantastic. Okay, Muiwa. Muiwa, is there anything we can learn from Lagos? You're in Lagos, you're a journalist, tech journalist. You track what everybody does. What can we learn from Lagos?
So we can learn from Lagos in ways. Back in 2013, for example, there was a partnership between the Lagos state government and Main one of the leading internet service providers in Nigeria, or West Africa, to lay fiber across the whole stretch of Macaulay Way in Yaba, Lagos. This was before any waiving of right-of-way fees, or the current trend now of different states governments either waiving right-of-way fees or reducing them. So at that time, right-of-way was still a challenge, but this partnership came. The co-creation hub in Lagos facilitated the partnership with Main One and the Lagos state government, and that whole stretch of that fiber cable lane gave birth to the whole thing about Yaba Tech or Yabacom Valley and all of that. Many startups moved to that area, and they're able to innovate and carry on their businesses. Although yes, over the years, many of these startups have moved on, right, to bigger spaces and all of that. But the fact is that they had that opportunity to kick off from there, just because of that simple partnership with the government, between the government, facilitated by Co-Creation Hub and the Main One. So another example, you can look at Ogun State too. In 2018, again, just before this trend of right-of-way crashes, right-of-way charges crashing, the Ogun State government signed a partnership with Main One also to lay 250 kilometers of fiber across the states in different local governments, Shagamu, Ijebu, different places. And the idea was that in exchange for that, Main One would provide the Ogun State government with 30 years of free internet service, so that that way the government is killing two stones with a bird. Is enabling penetration of broadband, which will definitely bring more businesses, because it has been said, for example, that every 10% increase in broadband penetration in developing countries can lead up to 1.35% GDP increase. So broadband has that ability to drive innovation, to drive economic activity. And so, with the government seeing forward in that, that's some of the ways that like Kaduna State can learn and Lagos from Lagos.
So you've answered the question we said before. Is it demand or supply driven? So you're saying if you build it, they will come. Sanusi? What's your take? You're a homeboy in Kaduna. Where should we build?
So my take is that it's market driven, which is both sides, right? Like sometimes it's the supply that brings up consumption. Other times it's demand that leads to production. That said, what I think Kaduna should be doing, and I think Kaduna is doing a lot of things, a lot of fantastic things across the board. I think what's missing is that ecosystem approach, the approach that all these things tie together, and as such, they work towards a common goal. I'll give you an instance. I know Kaduna State supported like the start of a call center here a couple of years ago, which is doing well. What I've not seen is how they plan to take that to the next level. Call centers, one of the understated thing about call centers, for instance, is that they're a really easy way to train people about technology. It's really low level. The basic skills you need at the beginning is to be able to type, and think, and as soon as you're able to do that, you can operate a call center, type, think, and talk, right? But you can use that avenue to teach. Now, one of the things that you find about call centers is that they have like really high churn rates. Nobody wants to work in a call center for a very long time. They want to leave. So it's a stopgap thing. So rather than let people stay for, while use your resources to look for jobs, how about think about it as a pipeline? Okay, so this is like the first training point. And while they're there, while they're there, they're learning other things that they can directly take the skills they've learned there and move somewhere else. And this cuts across a lot of things. Even when you think about like government use of technology, like how are they using it? Are they contracting it out and getting stuff built? Or are they, say for instance, organizing hackathons for people around there to come and actually try their hands on stuff? The government may or may not use those things, but what happens is you're beginning to expose people to the challenges that you have, and getting people to think about the challenges that you have, and also have some empathy about like the challenges that the government has. On the other hand, the government is getting next to free ideas on how they can, move stuff forward. And this ties across everything. You can take the same concept all around, with the road construction that's happening now, the elements of technology that you can build into it, with, the drive for investment should also be pushing for investments in technology. With the drive for training, we should be thinking about like after that training, what happens? Like how are we opening markets up for these people?
Creating opportunities.
How are we using government processes to even change habits? Because sometimes like consumption is a result of habits. When ATM cards became a thing, nobody wanted to use them. As soon as people started charging banks started charging over the counter for over the counter withdrawals, people started using ATM cards. And I think that alone moved the needle in terms of where we need to be with digital payments. So it's thinking about how everything interacts together that I think is.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, I'll stay with you and move into another space. What role do you think that digital identity and data in a broader sense should be playing in driving ICTs and innovation in economic development?
That's a really interesting question. I think for starters, data is like sight, right? If you have no data, you literally can't see. You don't know what you're doing. So that data, like access to data, is super key. Now, one of the most important data sets, if you ask me, is who an individual is, and how do you get a 360 degree of what that individual is? Like who is he or her? Where does the person live? What economic activity do they do? How do they relate with the government? What are their needs? And stuff like that. It's data that everywhere else, and obviously there's the conversation about the government having that kind of data, which is a separate conversation on its own. But it's data that some of the biggest companies in the world use to monetize and to get more efficient service delivery to individuals. So digital identity is really key. I think it helps with planning. It helps with distributing resources, and it helps with even thinking around solutions to actual problems. Like it makes zero sense to build a road where there's no one that leads to nowhere. If you had the data of where everyone was, it'll make sense. And if you had a better understanding of an individual, it also helps you plan. So sometimes what you actually need is not the volume of people or the population of people. What you need is high spend power. So if sometimes 100 people who have deep pockets would pay you better than 1,000 people with no pockets at all. So that kind of, having access to that kind of data is super useful across the board as well.
All right, thank you. Let's speak to Shola. Shola, we've spoken about data. You're talking about IoT, and you're talking about agriculture and all these things. What do you want to tell us about that nexus between data and identity in terms of the practical applications and the benefits that can be driven for the economy?
Okay, so for the Industry 4.0 technologies, data and digital identity has gone beyond humans. It has gone beyond persons. It has evolved into digital identity for things. And so we need to consider things when we talk about digital identity today. Before now, individuals can identify or interact with the government, with businesses, with other individuals in probably 6 roles: as consumers, as workers, as micro enterprises, as taxpayers, as beneficiaries, or as civically engaged individuals and asset owners. And there's a promise of every time somebody transacts with the government or with a business or with another individual, there is a secure line of transaction. But with IoT today, there must be a secure line of transaction, not just with people, but with things. Because now I want my plant to talk to everybody. I want to know the yield of my crop without going to the farm. I want to gather climate data and be able to say if rain is not going to fall early this year, so I can plan for my irrigation or drip irrigation system. So for me, data and digital identity has moved beyond humans or things that move. It has moved to digital identity for everything. And according to McKinsey, the GDP of every economy can be unlocked by 3 to 13% when we extend this digital ID to not just people, but to everything. So it means that with the advent of IoT in Kaduna State, the GDP of Kaduna State can increase by 3 to 13% by ensuring that not just people have valid digital ID, but also things. I listened to the plenary session yesterday, and there was a talk on the textile industry shifting focus from IoT to looking at the preliminaries, what they need to get, where the seed providers or suppliers are. Fortunately, IoT would create that space for them. IoT would connect everything and everyone, and with the data we are gathering, we can analyze and say that there is so much seed on this side, there is no seed on this side, and then government can allocate resources appropriately for every farmer who needs to get their products at the end of the year.
Thank you very much. That's very insightful. So we should be looking at IoT and we should be looking at data in terms of human data. Okay, now speaking about that, let me move on to Dr. Lanre Phillips. In Nigeria, and indeed most of the world, there is a general fear beyond data protection and GDPR issues, or NDPR as it were, if we localize it. There's a general fear of the citizenry, both as individuals and as businesses, in sharing data with government, because they generally believe that anytime they give government data, government hits them with more taxes and more charges. What is it that we can do or we should do? What should be the perspective of the citizen in terms of really sharing information with government is actually for your benefit, how would you encourage people to come forth and actually register and acquire their identities and get, like in Kaduna, where we have a residence registration initiative ongoing now?
Yeah, thank you, Gerald. I shared with a few friends yesterday, and I said, one of the most underrated statements that I grew up with in my life is that statement, knowledge is power. We think it's just simple and cliche as it is. But the truth of the matter is, it transcends beyond just that statement because it affects our every being. So what you know and what you don't know determines how you react. So what happens a lot of times why people don't want to share data with government and its agencies, it's because of their knowledge level. So, and you rightly mentioned the fact that many people think if you share adequate data with government, they're going to come back to you with huge taxes and all of those things you didn't used to pay tax on before. The second thing that I want to comment on is the trust issue between the citizenry and government. So if there's adequate knowledge about data sharing and the understanding that if you share precise and adequate data about yourself and your business, there's a whole lot government can do for you. And also if there's trust between government and its citizenry, I don't see an issue with people sharing data, but I think the two areas that we need to work on is the knowledge factor and the trust factor.
So as we drive this enlightenment and trust, which is the change elements that we have to work on, that's the point you're making, and I take your point. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're live on Kadinvest 5.0, and this is the technology session. For anybody who's out there, we will take your questions and we'll try our best to answer you. So keep the questions coming. Let me come back to Hafsa. Hafsa, we know that over 95% of the businesses we have in this state are MSMEs, micro, small, and medium enterprises. How can technology be innovatively applied to enable access to capital and markets for these entrepreneurs? I want to hear from you.
So first and foremost, I want to say that, again, I'm going to jump back on the previous conversation on data and like getting data from MSMEs. What you generally find is that people think about data as this point number, right, that you need to get on these MSMEs you're dealing with. But in essence, getting rich data on someone requires a lot of interaction, right? It's not enough for you to tell them, get a BVN or a bank account, right? It's not useful for them. So how can you get them to get to the point where they're using technological systems in a way that's useful for them, but also providing you data? Speaking of how we can get them to markets, I think we need to think about the specific situations in which they are in, right? So an example I would like to give is that we've been dealing with MSMEs and trying to get them to get financial services, all of that stuff. And what we generally find is that there's a lot of mistrust on what we're coming with. There's a lot of mistrust around trying to get agents to work with them, all of that. But once we take the time and we get them to see that they can actually transact, they can get off-takers, they take in that technology and utilize it in a way that's effective for them. For financial services, what we've been finding is that what they need the most is actually data on these businesses and what these businesses are selling, and also ensuring that we communicate with the businesses in a way that these businesses understand. So if we help them do that, they're able to reach these businesses and give them loans and all other financial services.
Okay, so just like the last speaker, you're emphasizing on outreach and interaction, connection.
Yes, connection, outreach, trust, giving them something that they actually want.
Okay. And we have a question from Barbara Barungi as actually one of my questions. So it's Barbara's now, to CEO Collab. What should the government do to provide a more enabling ecosystem for tech startups and other such initiatives?
That's a super interesting question. First of all, I'd say I think the government is doing the most important thing, which is staying out of the way. That to a large extent is, what's really important. Now, that aside, I think, again, like I earlier said, the government needs to think about like the ecosystem approach to everything. How do all the other things they're trying to do, how are they complementary with tech? How can technology make all the other things as well more efficient? And then how can you domesticate or localize or provide the opportunities for the people that are around that pick up these skills here? So one of our biggest and most interesting challenges is retention. We are designed, we think about talent as a pipeline process versus a retention process. So we don't want, in fact, if our collab, if you're there for like, we've been open for 4 years. So if you've been there for 3 years, there's probably a problem. We're either not doing well or there's something wrong with you. We think about it as, a system where you come in at some point and then at some point you grow too big for us because that's really what we want. But what we're finding is that for a lot of our talent are leaving Kaduna as soon as they can. So we have people in Rwanda, we have people working at Goldman Sachs in the UK, we have people in Kenya, we have a lot of people in Lagos. And that's just because the markets are there to absorb them. But if you think about this holistic approach, okay, so we're getting faster data for everyone, right? What kind of services can we build on top of that so that everyone can get on? When everybody gets on those services, you now start to think about what kind of opportunities, since we now have everyone on these services, what kind of opportunities can we layer on top of it? So some of these things, like I said, are happening. I renewed my driver's license recently and just, not driver's license, sorry, my car papers, vehicle license, and realized I could do it online.
Yeah.
That's great. You can do your BPR online. That's great. You can do your taxes online. Super great. How can you now start to then layer other things on top of this to make like the citizens' everyday today engagement build on top of those platforms? As soon as you start to do that, two things happen. You start to get more data based on the interactions, which is what she was talking about, based on the constant interactions that these people are doing. And off of that data, you can also now start to provide even more services or encourage even more services to go online. And the government can do a really important bit, which is not something we've talked about, but can do also a lot in shaping habits, right? Like if you force everybody to go online, if you force people to stop coming to the office with paper, it automatically takes them online. I was talking to someone I'll call one of my aunties just 2 or 3 days ago, and she was telling me how before COVID, she had never done anything online, but now she's in so many courses over Zoom that she's even overwhelmed. That's just the power of habit, like shaping habit. So I feel like the government also has like a lot of a role to play in shaping habit. But overall, I think the most important thing actually is to think about every single intervention that is being done, every single project or process as part of a bigger chunk versus an isolated thing. We think agriculture is one thing on one side, education is one thing on this side, but they all work hand in hand. And technology is that thing in the middle that enhances everything.
So I just enhance this question a little bit.
Yes.
How can customer demand for tech-based services? Okay, how can we move more and more people? Don't forget, Kaduna has 9.5 million people. I don't know how many of them, I think 23 or 32% of them have smartphones. Okay, so let's even try and optimize the culture among smartphone users beyond the fashion accessory. How can customer demand for tech-based services be improved in Kaduna State? Just saying layer more services.
Yeah, so the way I think about this is just to make stuff more relevant to them. So I can give you an example, for instance. If the state government, let's assume, I'm trying to think about a service. Let's assume that you can register for your land over WhatsApp, right? And that's, really simple example. Automatically, you'd be onboarding way more people than you would do if you have a website, because WhatsApp these days is pretty ubiquitous. Almost everyone uses it. You can say take your citizen registration and make the first layer of that registration happen on WhatsApp, so that when you actually go to capture your biometrics, you don't have to fill another form. You're doing two things. You're collecting data, you're making the processes faster, but you're also sort of unknowingly training the person to use the service. So next time when you say Kadinvest is coming and you can book a seat online on your WhatsApp, they're happy to do it. They've gone through the process before.
So deliver services on channels, digital channels that they're already acculturated to.
Yes.
As they come along.
Yes, and use that to upsell them to even more complex things.
Excellent. Okay, time is fast spent, and I would take this from for Hafsa again. What is your take on the quality of human services in Kaduna? There's a very interesting statement that Sanusi said, which is, don't worry about whether Kaduna is losing human capital, because it's actually a philosophy I share, that you should be proud enough that your people are moving on to greater things. So Kaduna should be on the growth path of techpreneurs and tech people. But what do you think about the people we have here? Would you move your business here? Would you invite people to come in here? Do we have the skill sets needed?
I think the Kaduna definitely has the skill sets needed, right? So one thing I find in hiring staff is a lot of them would prefer to be in Abuja and Lagos, not because Abuja and Lagos is better, not even because of pay, but because of exposure, right? There are a lot of people like them that are based in those locations. It's better for their growth because they are able to access all the resources they need to help them grow. So my take on it is going back to what Sanusi said about having ecosystems. Ecosystems allow these people to come back because they know they have a range of resources to tap to enable them to go. And again, it shouldn't be seen as a pipeline for just keeping them in one place. Again, like people say, people want a place that enables them to go to the next level of their lives.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sure to make Sanusi and yourself happy to know that Kaduna State Government, and we're working on partnerships. We'll probably come to both of you. We're going to build out more co-working spaces, digital hubs. I hope I don't get fired for this, but I can commit the governor to building out 2 by the end of the year, okay? And we'll put all the basic infrastructure in place, and all those bright people that are out there that want to contribute to the technology ecosystem, to service provision, to driving a digital society, will be able to get their starts from these locations. So we want to reduce the capital barrier because, each person should not provide all their own infrastructure, especially for young startups. It's not a capital profit-making venture. It's more of a human capital development venture. Okay, so yeah, so that's great. Do we have any last words from Dr. Phillips? HP.
Yes. From me, I once again want to congratulate the Kaduna State Government. I think it's one of the phenomenal things that the state government has done. In terms of technology, Kaduna is probably one of the states at the forefront in this country, and we're happy to be associated with Kaduna State, and of course, we wish Kaduna State well. Thank you.
Checkpoint is quite big. You're all over the place. I want a commitment from you, and that is that you pay attention to Kaduna State and you keep us on our toes. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, sure. We are up to the task. I believe we visited Kaduna State in 2016, around the time that Collab launched, and we did some coverage on activities that happen in Kaduna. So I can promise that we'll pay more attention now, as all the things you've talked about are coming through, like the co-working spaces and every other thing that has been discussed. I can promise that we'll be paying more attention.
We would also be building a village for artisanal level work.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
So we'll also be building out a digital village at that, level.
Okay.
So
we'll pay close attention and then we'll keep.
Okay. Right. And Shola?
Yeah.
IoT in agriculture. We need to partner with you.
Yes, so
Kaduna is the biggest state in Nigeria for agriculture.
yeah,
So
I quite agree with him.
So we need to work with you. You have some bright ideas. We need to practicalize them. When are we going to start?
As soon as you're ready, we are down for work.
You're ready?
Yes, if you say come tomorrow, we come.
Come tomorrow. Okay. All right. So I think we've just about run out of time. People have been gesturing at us from behind the screens here. So thank you very much. I hope this session has been worth everybody's while, and you've learned that Kaduna is the place to be. And you can actually build, we were talking about a company called Hello Tractor that started local and has gone regional across Africa. Sanusi and Hafsa are determined to take their businesses beyond Kaduna and beyond Nigeria indeed. And this place offers you, this state offers you the best place to be and build your business. And we're all collectively committed to driving a digital economy in Kaduna State and beyond. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Gerald Ilukwe. That was fantastic. Thank you for helping us recoup time because we want to keep to our promise. And indeed, I make bold to say that for all those other people, our panelists in Lagos, I know that they're eager to come here because indeed Kaduna is the state to watch. We'll be going for a quick interlude that will go into a documentary because right now we will be rethinking agriculture. That's the theme of our next documentary and of course the topic for our next and final session today. So let's go on that quick commercial break, the documentary, and then we'll be right back.
Baby Baba now, I get wear designer. Everything way I give I'm final.
Hello, Mom. Hey, Carol, Mom.
Carol, Komi. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How's Dad?
Your dad is fine. Are you me? You have not sent me the money you promised.
I'm so sorry, Mama. I'm gonna do it today.
Send it now before you forget again.
Okay, no problems. I'll do it now. Check.
Are you sure?
Yes, so, and I also paid for your cable, and I'm sending you credit for this long call you're making right now.
Thank you, my son. God bless you.
All right, Mama. I love you so much. I'll speak to you later.
When you drop, everybody know they tire. All of the girls go do anything for my love. All of the boys go do anything for the money. Then they dance to my music, then they show me love. Girls wanna touch, wanna love, they want to love. Say I got one life, make I leave. I'm see I don't.
In terms of population concentration and market potentials, 4 of the 10 major cities of Nigeria are within Kaduna and 200-kilometer radius. So distribution cost will not be a major problem to you. And it's only about 60% of agricultural land mass of Kaduna State that is being cultivated. So there is a lot of room for investment. And when you look at the number in terms of input, seed companies that we have are making a lot of kill. Up to today, there is not enough improved seeds that can reach out to farmers. So if you are looking at financing, agricultural financing and development of agricultural value chain aggregation, we have hardworking farmers in Kaduna State, and we have trustworthy communities. The state government has worked and structured the traditional institutions, linking the traditional institution, the Agri Development Agency, the favorable environment for investment that Kaduna State has provided through KADIPA and the favorable policies related to that. It is I think it's the best that anybody could ask for.
The agricultural sector is vast and offers a wide range of investment opportunities in the value chain of crop, livestock, and livestock products production. As such, the Kaduna State government has initiated renewed efforts to promote investment in business opportunities and meet emerging markets in several agricultural produce such as cereals, tomatoes, sugarcane, ginger, meat, and milk products. Presently, Kaduna State already houses agricultural businesses that have taken advantage of the huge investment potentials the state offers in terms of its strategic location in northern Nigeria, which translates into a ready market to investments, abundance in agro-allied business raw materials, and rich human resources in its teeming youthful population. Olam, for instance, is one of such businesses that have thrived since its setup a few years back. It has a hatchery of about 1.6 million birds weekly and churns out approximately 1,000 metric tons of poultry feed daily, and yet the demand for this product is still significantly high. Tomato Jaws is another company that is thriving in Kaduna agricultural space with a tomato farm of over 500 hectares and the engagement of several hundreds of local tomato farmers. The company has grown significantly and has led to the establishment of its own tomato processing factory. Sadiq Falalu is the owner of Falgate, a rice processing factory set up in Kaduna in 2016. He says the market is overwhelming and has influenced his decision to establish an even bigger rice factory that churns out about 8 tons an hour. Dayo Olatunji is a farmer of strawberries and other exotic vegetables. She has employed the use of social media as a major marketing tool, and within a time span of 3 years, she has gone from buying 2 boxes of strawberries off farmers to owning a farmland of 6 hectares where she grows the strawberries. With a staff strength of over 30 persons, she is a leading producer and supplier of fresh strawberries around the country today.
Okay, when we started at first, the major market was only Kaduna. We decided to expand to Abuja, Kano, but right now we deliver to about 34 states except for Osun, because we don't have any direct any way to send it from Kaduna, but to all cities, from Adamawa to Lagos to Kebbi to Edo to Delta State, all cities. We deliver to all cities, and it's very, very, very easy from Kaduna.
Abubakar Abdulkader is a dairy farmer.
Dairy farming is very, very interesting because we usually use Frisian. We used to crossbreed it. Now, because of our weather condition, with our local breed called Bokolo or Sokoto Gudali. So if you crossbreed Frisian with Sokoto Gudali, you will get 50% Frisian, which can give you about 15 liters of milk daily for 8 months. And here in Kaduna, each liter is about 500 naira.
These are just few stories of many individuals and companies who have taken advantage of the favorable investment climate and the agricultural space of Kaduna State to establish their businesses. But interestingly, the state still offers a huge array of yet untapped investment opportunities in its agricultural sector that is waiting for you to come and invest in.
All right, well, welcome back from that commercial break right now. We will be moving into the next plenary session called, with the topic or titled, Rethinking Agriculture. And our moderator for this session will be Michael Kadri. He is CEO, a diversified agriculture and food production holding company based in Lagos. AIP Boss, a diversified agriculture and food production holding company that is based in Lagos. Mr. Michael Kadri, do we have you online?
Indeed you do. Thank you.
Michael Kadri.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
So we're going to trust that you will keep the session quick. We want to be able to hear the best we can and also do that in good time. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I'd like to formally welcome all of you to Kadinvest 5.0 and an exciting plenary session titled Rethinking Agriculture. It's a very interesting topic. Interesting because the title says Rethinking Agriculture. So I'm hopeful that in the hour that we have together, we will pick out why that title. Because of course, Nigeria has always been an agricultural hub. We are endowed with all manner of advantages. So it'd be interesting to discuss why we're rethinking it. I have an exciting panel with me today that I'm excited to introduce and look forward to discussing some of the topics that we will look to touch over the next 1 hour. I don't know who is on board yet. I note that Mira is with us. You're here, Mira? Okay, and I think, do we have Mr. Saibu Somalia with us? Okay, I'll take.
Yes, I'm online. I'm online.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, sir. And Mr. Samson Ogoli.
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon. I'm here. Good afternoon.
Okay, welcome. And we have, is it Dr. Chinedu? Are you with us, sir?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be in Kadinvest 0.5.
Excellent. So I'm just going to let you all know how we're going to do this. I will take a couple of minutes to introduce our panelists. And thereafter, what I'll do is I will spend 30 seconds to introduce a particular topic. I will formulate a question from that topic, and I'll throw it to the panelists, where we hope for a robust enough discussion amongst ourselves. Okay, so ladies first, I'll start with Mira. Welcome, Mira. Thank you so much for joining us. Mira is co-founder and CEO of Tomato Juice, which is a fully integrated farming and processing agri-business in northern Nigeria. They produce tomato paste and other agricultural products for the domestic market. Ms. Mira has worked in financial services and the healthcare sectors in both New York and Nigeria. She's a graduate of Brown University and Harvard Business School, and has lived in Nigeria since 2008. So welcome again, Mira. Thank you so much for being here with us. So to demonstrate that the panel covers extensive areas of the value chain, I'm really excited to introduce Samson Ogola. Samson is a farmer, and so we're very excited to have him on board. He's the start of how this sector works. Beyond that, Samson is a lead trainer for Farm Lab. Samson has devoted his time and resources to building modern farms that explore latest technology for agriculture. A public speaker, he's featured on TEDx, CNN's African Voices, Reuters TV, Channels TV, and others. Farmer Samson has lent his expertise to the public sector as well in Lagos and Ogun states, and he's been recognized accordingly. I'm also excited. Thank you so much. Yes. So I'm also very excited to introduce Sabiu Sani Ismailia. Sabiu is a banker by profession with over 2 decades banking experience in retail and commercial banking. He's currently the permanent secretary in the Kaduna State Ministry of Agriculture. He's devoted his recent professional life in the service of Kaduna State. He's been an executive secretary in Kaduna State Industrialization and Microcredit Management Board, executive secretary, Kadipa, and pioneer GM and CEO of Kaduna Agriculture Development Agency. You're most welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone.
So thank you for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a whale in the room, in the house. Dr. Chinedu Ogonaya is a principal manager in the Anchor Borrowers Program team at the Central Bank of Nigeria. From the Development Finance Department, he has participated in the formulation and implementation of several intervention policies, including the National Inclusion Strategy for Nigeria, the 220 billion naira micro, small, and medium enterprises development fund, and the Anchor Borrowers Program. So this is a man that if you found walking the streets, you should capture him, put him in a bottle, and take him back to your offices and farms, because he can really play a major impact in your agri ambitions. So in June 2013, he also participated in the 19th Boulder Microfinance Training Program in Turin, Italy, and also had assignments with the Reserve Bank of South Africa, as well as the Central Bank of Kenya. His doctorate degree is in marketing communication, and he has published papers on communication tools for banking. So thank you so much. We're really excited to have you on board.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's my honor.
So also on our panel today is our youngest panelist. I'm really excited that he's on board. He's already doing incredible stuff. I believe he's 25 years old only, a graduate from Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh, bitterly cold Edinburgh, Scotland. He's also the CEO of Hafas Integrated Farms, a 450-hectare farm in Kebbi State. Hafas also operates a rice mill and an oil mill. And as I understand it, engages in the socio-economic space, where he's chairman of Arewa Youth Agropreneurs. Excitingly, he's also president of Agrocola, a digital technology agri-alliance and hub. You should also check out his podcast called Hafas Post, a platform that interviews entrepreneurs in order to motivate the youth. So very excited to have you on board. I'm sure that you're going to point us into the direction of the future as we debate and discuss some of the very interesting topics that we've got scheduled. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
Okay, excellent. So I hope you're all as excited as I am. We also welcome all those who have, through the magic of technology, joined us this afternoon. I hope you're all as excited as I am. You know, innate in societies is the need for nutrition and health. Everything starts with agriculture, and that's why it's so important. And it is no surprise that Kaduna State is the recipient of the largest FDIs in Nigeria at the moment. And interestingly enough, much of that FDI has come into the agriculture and the food production space. So we don't want to blow our trumpet, but we are absolutely important for society and for advancement of society and advancement of development. So all of us who are in the agri space, who are in the food production space, we matter. And so I'm sure that everybody who is on board is going to pay special attention to our deliberations here this afternoon. So I'm your humble servant, your humble moderator. Just to tell you a little bit about me, my name is Michael Kadiri. I am the Managing Director of AIP BOS. We are an agri-commodity trader and food production company based in Lagos. So as I said several times, I'm really glad to be here. As I said earlier on, I'm going to take 30 seconds to a minute, introduce a topic, formulate a question, and throw it to the panel. So the first, let's make it very exciting, an exciting start, okay? So the first area that I want us to look at is to first touch upon the role of government. So today, the buzzword in Nigeria is that the government is looking to advance agriculture and food production. Now, some people have been touched by the opportunities that exist that government has created, particularly through the central bank. Many haven't. And I'm really glad that we have an official from the central bank here today. And I'm particularly glad because of your experience. So my question is government's involvement in agriculture today, is it a myth? Is it reality? And what are the ways that we can improve it? I'd like to start with you, Dr. Chinedu.
Thank you very much. This is a question that we get to hear every day. Is government involvement? First of all, they ask if all the things they hear on radio and see on TV, they are real. And then the next thing is, how come they are not feeling it? So I'll start by saying that it is real. There can be a better time for government to be involved in agriculture. As you know, agriculture is done on land. Every land in Nigeria is owned by the government by the Land Use Act. And then in addition to that, according to the FAO, direct inputs to agriculture to improve agribusiness in Nigeria in the last 20 years has been less than 1% per annum. So if there is any time that government needs to rethink about its role in agriculture, it is now. Just to go straight to point, I'm excited as the discussion goes on. I'll bring in dimensions from policy end to practical funding that government has provided for every interested farmer. I will create opportunity for people to really know that this is real. The population of Nigeria, the sheer size of Nigeria makes it difficult sometimes for every piece of the pie to go around, but it is real. Government is focused on it, and we're beginning to see great results.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We look forward to hearing a little bit more about this from you later on. So I think I'm already struggling with time. So let me, rather than put that same question to the rest of the panel, I'm going to touch on another issue. So something else that's very popular is the fact that we all agreed that we need to get our youth involved in agriculture. So the direct question goes to Haruna. How do we, you're really involved in this space, apart from your business, you're really involved in this space. So tell us a little bit of what you think of how we can stimulate the youth to get involved in agriculture. What are the things that we need to be doing, particularly from government and the interventionist agencies?
Well, Mr. Michael, there's this notion that we have as Nigerians always saying the youth don't want to go into agriculture because they don't see it as attractive. But the truth is, with my organization, we've traveled to Kaduna, that's the Ariwa Youth Agripreneurs, this January. And we had a brief meeting. We just wanted to meet the youths in Kaduna to see what they've been up to. And to be honest, we've seen an influx of youths being interested to be in agriculture. But the challenges that they pose is that the government really needs to give them a ground to thrive. But what I mean by that is that they need funding, because these are youths that are just graduating from university, and some of them are just finishing secondary school, and they need access to land, they need access to funding, and agricultural mechanization cannot be overemphasized as for you to be profitable in this business, you have to actually focus on mechanization. And I'm very glad to hear that the Kaduna State government has a Mahindra that is going to be assembling its tractors in the states. And I can see that they are moving towards that direction of mechanization. So I can really say that the government is doing well. And I'm happy to have Mr. Chinedu here. So that's one of the low-hanging fruits where the state government can actually partner together with the ABP and the development finance, so that these youths can actually be involved in agriculture. And sorry, one more thing that I wanted to mention is the Kaduna State Agricultural Structure Survey that gave me an insight that most of the youth that are involved in agriculture, most of the people that are involved in agriculture in the state are between 40 to 30 years old, which is there's a need for the government to make a deliberate effort to engage youths in agricultural practices. And I also want to commend the Kaduna State government for carrying out such survey, because it shows how serious they are, and because we cannot overemphasize the importance of data in this day and age.
So thank you very much for that. You made a number of very valid points. Above all of that, actually, is the fact that clearly Kaduna State is being at the frontier end of advancing agriculture and food production in Nigeria. So thank you so much for that. I want to go to Mr. Sampson. In your role as a farmer, so I want to ask you, how are you experiencing the impact of government? How is government impacting your work in farming? And are there any things that you think the government should be putting in place to make your outcomes more profitable?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Now, as a practicing farmer, I am one of those who always say we must not overestimate the role of government such that we cast our responsibilities to the government. So for me as a practicing farmer into veggies, tomatoes, using technology and all of that, the part I always want the government to play is first, make the roads okay. Now, because I understand that getting the roads to be okay is not an overnight job, because I need to be able to prove over time that investing in this road would actually make sense financially, economically for the government in power, because at the end of the day, there is always limited resources. Even if it is the government, there is limited resources. So it's my job to ensure I had to get a space that I know it's easier for me to get to markets. Two, I would also want the government over time to work on storage facility, because the reality is, if we do not have a way to store food, the seasonal production of food, the impact of climate change would have an adverse effect on whatever it is we are doing on the farm. We have an adverse effect on what we are doing on the farm. And like Haruna said earlier, there is also a big need to ensure that there is available finance, or better still, there is available equipment that farmers can rent and pay for cheaply over time. So for example, as a farmer who probably wants to do 100 hectares, 200 hectares, we may not have the money to buy all of these equipment. But if there is an intervention that allows the farmer to say, oh, I can get this tractor, I can get this equipment, use and pay for it gradually, it helps a lot. And I must say that government also needs to move away from spending on consumables and invest more for the farmer on things that are not readily consumed. What I mean by that is we need to move away from buying of fertilizers and all of that, all these agrochemicals, because if you spend on the chemicals this year, you have to respend on it next year. But if we have access to irrigation, just having irrigation alone would ensure that farmers can produce food all year round. And what that would mean invariably for the government or for the economy generally is the cheapest a produce can be becomes the regular price of that produce all year round, just because there is irrigation available. And you realize that when the government invests in something like irrigation, it's not a thing you keep investing on annually or you keep giving subsidy on annually. So yeah, I think in a simple form, there should be a work on logistics, work on transport, on storage, very important. Then infrastructural development around agriculture, not consumables. That would go a long way in helping the local farmers, including myself.
Okay, so thank you so much for that interesting contribution, very interesting contribution. The first thing you said that was that we should not look to government to provide all these solutions, which is a great segue for me. I want to bring Mira on, and I'd like your contribution, particularly considering that you have a background in financial services. If you're still here with us and you can hear me, I would like your contribution with regards to what the international investing and fund management communities think of Nigeria. What is the current sentiment? At AIP BOS, my fellow partners and I, we spend a lot of time talking to foreign investors, trying to attract them into Nigeria. What would be your take on what the current sentiments about Nigeria are?
Sure. Thank you, Michael, so much for having me on the panel today. And it's a great question. You know, in general, I think the biggest draw to Nigeria, of course, is the population and, you know, the relative wealth of the country. You know, 200 million people, a very young population, a growing population. It's a story that, you know, resonates with investors, especially who have a lot of growth, you know, in their minds. The fear that comes along with that excitement is about what we call counterparty risk, right? Am I going to be able to trust that the person on the other end of my deal is going to hold up to their end of whatever we sign? And I think that's coupled by the fact that a lot of international investors have a fear of actually living in Nigeria and really understanding the context. And so you got a lot of folks who end up flying in, seeing something, flying out, but not really truly understanding how relationship-based things are here and how important it is to really work to develop and understand who you're working with before, you know, and to get references and to, you know, to make it a community thing rather than to just come in and say, okay, I want to put this plant up here. I'm going to put this money into this person's hands and fly back to Europe or fly back to London, you know? And so I think that that's one of the things that Kaduna State has really tried to understand and has tried to, you know, make better for foreign investors, you know, understanding that counterparty risk is really important, understanding that Nigeria, for better or worse, has a reputation for, you know, being very difficult to do business in. So creating things like Kadipa, creating things that, you know, make investors understand how to navigate in a place where they aren't necessarily from or don't necessarily understand. You know, a lot of foreign investors or a lot of foreigners don't understand how large Nigeria is. The fact that Kaduna State is larger than Liberia, you know, it's larger than many other countries on the continent, and that there are opportunities that you can seek that are actually regional or even state specific, and still earn, you know, a return. Because of course, at the end of the day, most financial investors want to see that if I put in $1 million tomorrow, in 7 years, I can take out $10 million. And so, you know, being able to demonstrate that those kinds of growth and numbers are achievable even within a region of the country is also very important.
Wow, thank you so much for that. I think that you've touched upon some really important issues there, certainly issues that me in my company and our partners experience all the time. I want to go to, if I may, I want to go to Sabiu, because I want him to help us proceed on this particular topic, because I think that one of the issues that Mira was talking about that we've all experienced is the issue of ease of doing business. There's also an elephant in the room. There's a security issue. That's certainly the sentiments from foreign investors or fund managers who are looking at Nigeria, and they consider it a risk that they struggle to mitigate in trying to produce bankable projects. So I want Mr. Sabiu to help us look at this issue. And the two direct questions I'll ask him are, what is, in his opinion, the ease of doing business situation in Nigeria is, and how it relates to our ability to attract foreign investors. And like I said, the elephant in the room, the security issue. So please talk to us about your thoughts on this, how Kaduna is looking at this issue, meeting these challenges, and also importantly, how Nigeria generally is meeting these challenges.
Well, as you rightly said, sometimes the issue of security you raise is real, but I want to believe that it's being overplugged in the sense that you cannot really exactly say this is the amount of losses you incur in terms of productivity resulting from insecurity. Yeah, we have pocket of insecurity, but productivity has continued to increase. In a demand-driven approach to agricultural productivity, and also in working towards reorienting farmers from seeing agriculture as a culture rather than as a business, and in also working towards the development of the agricultural value chain by clearly itemizing and identifying the various stages and working towards improving it. We have seen significant growth in our productivity. If you take our statistical report in the last 4 years, you can see increasing growth in the GDP contribution of agriculture to Kaduna State economy, to the extent that now we have a contribution that is heading towards 38.2%, and which we hope by next year it will hit 40%. And this growth is being influenced by several factors in an integrated approach manner. One, the freeing up of the space, the attraction of investment that drive the productivity, because farmers actually go towards producing what is in demand. And when they see value, they go towards it. And then when you look at the focus of the administration, which has changed from subsidizing inputs where agriculture is only viewed as a fertilizer market to the issue of covering mechanization, organizing the farmers and training them and getting them linked up to market and linked up to finance. And they're becoming increasingly accessible to financing. We can say that I wouldn't say at the moment that the security is a major constraint. I would rather say, yeah, security is a challenge, but it has not been able to clearly be identified as a link or reason responsible for decline, because we are not recorded decline in agricultural productivity in terms of land under cultivation, in terms of average yield per hectare of farmers, and in terms of even the investment flow that is coming into agriculture, or rather say that is an issue, but not an issue that is, we can say, is constraint to productivity at farmer level and also at uptake level.
So thank you so much for your contribution and representing the views of the Kaduna State government with regards to security issues. It's heartening to note that from the data that you have, the issue of security, which is a challenge, has not impacted, in your opinion, productivity or foreign investment into Kaduna State. I think that the platforms that the government in Kaduna State have created have, I think, helped to mitigate this issue on security. So thank you so much for that. I'd like to go to Chinedu to quickly give us your take on the issue of ease of doing business in Nigeria and how the central bank looks at being an interventionist agency in this regard.
Okay, I would speak on basically two prongs. Ease of doing business from our point of view in the CBN is to ensure that we put the kind of policies in place that assist agriculture to reach its full potential. On the policy side, I will just take you through one or two policy thoughts that we've implemented post-COVID to ensure that the real sector in general continue to experience growth, and then agriculture in particular. In managing the financial system, as you know, from time to time, the central bank gauges the cash in the system. I will use the layman's language so that the array of guests that we have will appreciate what we're talking about. And then from time to time, withdraws this cash from the system. We have a new policy that tweaks that a little bit. And what we are doing now for banks who are lending heavily to agriculture, the central bank is willing to discuss, you can use the language, a private arrangement on loan deposit ratio management. What we try to do is, yes, the ratios are this, but because we see the huge potential, the huge lending this bank or that bank is doing in agriculture, we are willing to tweak that policy, to tweak the DCR position so that that bank will lend effectively to agriculture. As you know, agricultural loans are not like typical import finance, oil and gas transactions that from start to finish, you're looking at lead time 90 days. Agriculture requires sometimes long-term funding, and then there is concern about how the banks carry this on their balance sheet. So apart from direct policy on loan deposit ratio management, the CBN is also intervening on critical agricultural commodities. But for what the federal government under the administration of Buhari has done in rice production in Nigeria, at this time, there would have been major food crisis. Starting from 2005, when the Anchor Borrower program was launched, the CBN has consistently financed, intervened in that commodity, rice and other commodities that lead to huge expenditure in foreign exchange. So to answer you directly, two-pronged approach, put the policies that encourage banks to actively lend to agriculture. Secondly, when you watch what the banks are doing and you are not getting your targets, the objectives as much as you want, we intervene directly. And to mention directly, the focus has been rice, wheat, maize, cassava, and a few other commodities that are staples for Nigerians and who have contributed heavily in foreign exchange expenditure for the country.
Thank you so much, Chinedu, for that very useful answer. We're struggling with time. I knew this would happen. It's interesting, but we're struggling with time. So I want to encourage our guests to send any questions so that we can put those questions to our panelists. There were interesting topics that we hoped to discuss today, but I think we're going to struggle with time to do so. I wanted us to look, for example, at the impact of water, the fact that all over the world, water is a problem, and how we're looking to meet this challenge. So interesting questions that come in regarding water resources will be very welcome. We didn't get the opportunity to discuss COVID-19 and how it's been an issue, how it's affected the agri-sector in Nigeria. But before we start to take the questions, I want to deal with one question very quickly and see how our panel please deal with it. I want to put this question to Mira, actually, if I may. In your opinion, okay, because an important element of advancing our agri ambitions is the workforce, that we have to have skilled human resource. Do you think that our education system is fit for purpose in this regard? What are your thoughts?
Oh boy. It's tough, you know, like the education system in Nigeria is so focused on theoretical. And, you know, at the end of the day, what I need on my farm and what I need in my employees is folks with practical experience and who are willing to come in. And so I often look at, you know, polytechnic schools, and I'd rather have somebody who's maybe not had necessarily as much formal education, but apprenticed somewhere and did some work on, you know, on whatever it is that I'm trying to get. So, you know, some of my best tractor operators, you know, didn't necessarily even get a degree, right? And if I look at, you know, it's really tough, to be honest. You know, I loved Samson's points, you know, the points about what farming actually requires. And I think also Hafez touched on this, that mechanization is really important. Well, if you want to have an asset, if you want to have mechanization, you have to be able to maintain those assets in order for that investment to pay off. And the culture of investment in maintenance is very poor. I mean, you see that in roadside mechanics. You see that in the way that, you know, people treat their tools or don't treat their tools. And I think that kind of challenge really then ends up making these small costs of agriculture that you don't think about much, much more expensive. So for example, you know, we've got a John Deere tractor. It's been down since May, you know, and the fuse is out, and our mechanics, you know, went to the John Deere dealer, and he's like, oh, we have to get the fuse box from South Africa because we don't have those in stock, you know, so those kinds of things. And then even the mechanic that comes up doesn't know how to repair the tractor that he's licensed to repair. And so those kinds of challenges are very, very real. And I think the best way to overcome them is really to introduce more practical training in education and have more apprenticeships and have more hands-on training, you know, outside of the oil and gas sector. I would say oil and gas is a sector where you see huge amounts of training going in, you see huge amounts of very highly skilled people, but the price points that those employees require to be working on those rigs or wherever they are doesn't map out into agriculture unless you're in a very, very large farm. And so I think that you know, we found that, you know, we send our guys for training all the time, whether it's on how to weld something, or, you know, my agronomist is teaching how to walk the fields, how to spray on your farms effectively. All of those things are things that you don't necessarily learn in school.
Thank you very much. Very, very, very useful answer. We appreciate that. So we have a, we also know actually that the CBN has been working in the area of water resources. We know that the CBN has been working with the Ministry of Water Resources and preferring initiatives. Before I go on, we've received a question from Abdurrahman Modibo, who is the MD of Rauda Farms. He's posed a question to Chinedu. So I'll read the question and ask for Chinedu's response very quickly because we're struggling with time. He says, I've applied for the AGS MIES loan since 2019 January. I haven't gotten the money, neither have I been told why. The consultant who handled my application to NIRSAL, the microfinance bank, doesn't seem to know why, but has been promising that he'll get a call. Okay, so this is a bit, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I know you can't directly solve his problem, but you may be able to give us some idea of what's happening in that space.
Yes, part of what this kind of forum does for us is we present to the public the real facts about our interventions. I'll start by saying the AgSmith loan that he's referring to is a program of the Bankers Committee of Nigeria. Every bank in Nigeria, we've used moral suasion to get them to on-lend to SMEs, and we were not getting the kind of traction we desired. So we got every bank in Nigeria to set aside 5% of profit after tax on an annual basis. And then that fund is used to finance agribusiness and SMEs in Nigeria. Now, back to the question. As you know, in 2013, there is this research that came out to say that for CBN to adequately finance SME needs, we would require about 9 trillion naira. So what this goes to say is that there is no way the fund will be enough to finance every application, every single of the 37 million SMEs in Nigeria. Now, having said that, if people apply, go through the processes, go through the training, submit good business proposal, the onus is also on NISA Microfinance Bank to accord some level of priority on this request. Those that are agriculture, under agriculture, are they the focal commodities that the government and people of Nigeria spend money importing? Are they items that we're already at optimal level of production? I am not sitting in for NISA Microfinance Bank, but I'm just making the point that if the application is there, it's receiving attention. Not all the people that applied will receive the funding, but we will do our best from time to time to make sure that this fund gets to ultimate beneficiaries.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Really struggling now. We're the extra time of this game. I'm going to get in one more question from the public. It's a question from Titi Jimakima that's coming from Lagos. But hopefully before we wrap up, we'll get to touch on the impact of COVID-19. But Titi says, because of the intensive financial outlay involved in water irrigation systems for agriculture, will the Kaduna State government consider agri-tourism projects along its rich agricultural belt, where water irrigation infrastructures will be set up and laid out to encourage young farmers, leasing farmlands that are plug and play, ready to run? So to that, I'm going to ask Mr. Sabiu to respond to Titi's question, please. In 1 minute, if I may beg your indulgence.
Come on, Micah.
I want to call on all farmers and prospective farmers to understand that you don't actually need large-scale irrigation infrastructure for you to be able to do farming. There is precision farming that is taking place now. You can dig borehole. Kaduna State is a state that is endowed with lots of underground water. We have plenty of water bodies across the state, perennial rivers and so. And modern day agriculture does not actually mean, especially for high value crops like vegetables and fruits, you can have a borehole, dig an overhead, put an overhead tank, and then deliver your irrigation infrastructure to the point of need. It's a little bit expensive, but luckily, because of the use of plastic and plastic derivatives, greenhouses, and the warehousing arrangement for cold chain is something that is open for significant investment in the state. This is something that is faster, is easier, and is profitable. If we look at the value of these crops off-season, they tend to increase tremendously. And if you are producing in a controlled environment, you get better yield. And that is where knowledge and education and an area that I believe young people should be able to be attracted into the agriculture. We don't want people's mindset to be looking at farming, carrying cutlasses and all those things when you are doing agriculture. We are looking at this young generation of educated and improved access to financing to be able to finance investment and also to focus investment in agriculture into these areas. And I believe Kaduna State is well positioned in terms of policy environment, in terms of favorable environmental condition for it, and in terms of the preponderance of youth within the population that are willing to take challenging tasks like those, like that in that area.
Okay, so thank you very much. I'm going to invite Mira to contribute for 30 seconds to this issue of water resources and irrigation, please.
Yeah, I mean, in tomato, irrigation is the #1 driver of yield. So I'm absolutely pushing. I would love Katy state government to invest in large scale irrigation. The other thing I would say though, I mean, to Alhaji Sabiu's point, it's super expensive to put it in and it's super expensive to maintain it. So you have to have a system that prices those plots appropriately so that a farmer can afford it and that whoever is managing it can afford to maintain it. But short answer, yes, please, please, please do it.
Excellent. So you've heard from Amira to the Kaduna state government. Water resources is big, it's important, and it plays a very important role. So we also had a comment from James Awoni. It's a complaint actually, and it was a complaint directed at CBN. But I won't forward the complaints on this forum. Suffice to say that generally he's talking about the fact that the interventionist initiatives from the central bank are not reaching their intended targets. It's also easy to understand that because all over the country, they're very smallholder farmers who may be at various stages of literacy. I'm sure that the central bank looks at this area, but it's not a call for your comments. It's not a call for your comments, sir. But I'm just saying that this is some of the sentiments that's out there. So just quickly, I think that before we go, I want to touch on COVID, obviously, because it's here. It's been impactful for many months. Businesses stopped operating all over the world, and Nigeria was not exempted. So I want to pose this question to our young Turk, Haruna Tukur, to give us some idea of how COVID has affected his business and what young people have considered about COVID and how to overcome the challenges that have been presented by it. Haruna, please.
Thank you,
45 seconds. 45 seconds.
Sure. COVID has really impacted our businesses negatively because if you look at it from the prices of inputs, so we're talking about prices hike. The farmer is not the person that is hiking these prices. If you look at it as the input, we are talking about fertilizer, talking about pesticides, herbicides, all these are kind of inputs that have increased in prices, which obviously as a farmer, it has increased your expenditure for your health, for a cost of production per hectare. So these kind of challenges that we have faced, we've faced other challenges such as transportation. So during the COVID period, just a member of ours that you've seen that grows strawberry, she was telling me that a lot of her strawberry, they've gone very bad during the COVID period because of the lack of transportation that has been going on and the restriction of transportation. So a lot of businesses have suffered a lot of loss during the COVID era, but however, it's been a curse and a blessing as well. We've been able to see a lot of other ways that we can do businesses and how we can be able to cut down on some unnecessary costs in running our businesses as well. So that's
Thank you for that. Sorry, I had to issue you a yellow card. I'm getting the flea in my ear that we've actually run out of time. I'm really sorry, but particularly grateful for the Kaduna State government. This platform is incredible. We hope that at some time in the future, we'll all get to sit around the table and discuss these things. It's a big, important sector, the agri-sector, and it's what will elevate the Nigerian economy in terms of forex, in terms of businesses, and in terms of employment in the near future. So thank you all so much for joining me and us on this platform. I hope it's been as educational and knowledgeable for you as it has definitely been for me. So thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kadri. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Michael Kadri, CEO, AIP Boyas. a diversified agriculture and food production holding company that is based in Lagos. Indeed, you were a dream as a moderator because you were able to recoup time for us, just like Mr. Gerald Ilukwe did for us. Thank you so much. And with that, like joke, like we love to say in these climes, we have come to the end of this event. The end of the event, but not the end of all that it stands for. Remember, infrastructure, industrialization, and innovation. And yes, she did welcome us, and she will bid us goodbye. It's time for us to take closing remarks from Hajia Umma Yusuf Aboki, the Executive Secretary of the Kaduna Investment Promotion Agency. Hajia Umma.
Thank you very much. I am especially honored to address you all as we draw the curtains on a hugely successful economic and investment summit, Kadinvest 5.0. The Kaduna State government, under Malam Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai's leadership, is well accustomed to going off the beaten path and seeking creative ways, turning adversity into opportunity. The choice of innovation, therefore, was one of our central themes for this summit. In its initial billing and scheduled for April, was not far-fetched. The assertion was tested when we were faced with the vagaries of the global pandemic and the realities of a new normal. Public health protocols, a lockdown, and travel restrictions meant that the vibrant personal interactions which have come to be associated with Kadinvest would not be possible. In the face of the challenge, however, we drew on our inclination to innovate. As such, we have sustained the momentum of the last 4 editions and have seized the unique opportunity afforded by a virtual summit. I am happy to conclude today that with your support, distinguished guests, Kadinvest 5.0 has produced interactions much wider, much more robust, and more engaging than we dared to hope. I must express our deepest appreciation to His Excellency President Muhammad Buhari for his gracious support and for honoring our invitation and attending this event. We have been immensely encouraged by his joining us, and with his remarks, our investment promotion resolve is stronger than ever. We're also grateful to His Excellency, the Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, for his goodwill message. The healthy competition between states is something we relish for our collective improvement. My profound thanks also goes to our keynote speakers, Mr. Bismarck Rewani and His Highness Muhammad Sanusi II, for their illuminating sessions and key insight, which will only help our advancement in our chosen priority sectors. We also like to thank our keynote speakers who unfortunately were unable to attend the summit due to other engagements. I wish to also sincerely thank our sponsors and partner agencies for their generosity and support. I am particularly grateful to the NESG and NIPC for their helpful advisory roles. We similarly thank our numerous guests from across the public sector, as well as industry giants and private sector executives who have greatly enriched this webinar. We deeply appreciate our plenary discussants with whom we have held stimulating sessions as they brought to bear their unique perspectives for valuable and innovative results. We thank all registered participants who joined us from around the world, adding tremendous networking value to this event. I reserve very special thanks to the chairman of our board and the vice chairman of our board and other members of the board for their continued support in ensuring that Kadipa achieves the mandate it has been set for it. The presence of His Royal Highness on our board, with his presence, we have benefited greatly from his breadth and depth of knowledge, experience, intellect, and networks. We remain ever grateful. I also appreciate the members of our organizing committee, without whom we wouldn't have achieved what we have achieved today. They have been committed their time and efforts towards making this historic event a success. I'm very proud of what we have achieved with Kadinvest 5.0. Finally, our special and profound appreciation goes to our tireless and ever-supportive Governor, Malam Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai. We could not have asked for better, more visionary leadership to steer Kaduna State through these uncertain times. He has galvanized us to stay the course that we began in 2016 with Kadinvest. The first edition carried with it much hope, and in the 4 years since, determined reforms have transformed that hope into clear results, from placing 27th in the Federation in attaining the #1 spot in the World Bank Ease of Doing Business rankings, as well as bringing in about $800 million worth of investments with about $2.1 million in announcements. We look back on this achievement with satisfaction, but we're determined to go even further. We're focused on creating stronger and deeper linkages to cover the gaps between corporate businesses and MSMEs. We're determined to make Kaduna the national hub for manufacturing and industries. Our urban renewal drive is expanding frontiers for doing business, job creations, inclusive growth, and all-round prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, I look forward to seeing you at Kadinvest 6.0. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hajia Yusuf Aboki. We indeed look forward to Kadinvest 6.0. And at this time, I would like to ask for each and every person to please stand up for the national anthem.